This is Jocko podcast number 326 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. Good evening, Echo.
Good evening.
Throughout October 30th and 31st, 2011, in furtherance of the Drug Enforcement Administration's drug law enforcement mission in Afghanistan, special agents of the DEA's Foreign Deployed Advisory Support, or FAST team, conducted counter-narcotics, counterinsurgency operations with their police partners from the Afghan National Interdiction Unit, assisted by the Australian Defence Forces. The task force departed their base via 4 helicopters as part of a mission to execute Afghan drug warrants and to search for narcotics caches and heroin production labs. The team began to search the target area and accompanying opium bazaar when they began to receive sporadic incoming enemy fire. They accomplished their assigned duties and then maneuvered to the extraction location, all while under sporadic enemy fire. When the task force arrived at the helicopter landing zones, they continued to receive effective enemy fire. One of the 4 helicopters was forced to make an additional orbit and subsequently land in the vicinity of Special Agents Piersante, Johnson, Vanderbilt, Harris, Stewart, Fisher, Portinga, and 5 members from the Australian Special Forces. This helicopter landed under fire. Special Agent Piersante laid down suppressive fire, which enabled Special Agent Stewart, Harris, and Fisher to board the helicopter. Once inside, Special Agent Stewart continued applying suppressive fire. Special Agent Stewart directed an Afghan door gunner to initiate suppressive fire in an attempt to cover the remaining members of the team still outside the helicopter. Special Agent Piersante was approximately 10 meters from the rear of the helicopter when he was hit by enemy fire. The round penetrated his ballistic helmet, entered above his right eye, and exited above his left eye, and he was immediately rendered unconscious and fell to the ground. Special Agent Portinga positioned himself at the rear of the helicopter and continued laying down suppressive fire as Special Agent Piersante was being brought back into the helicopter. He instinctively put himself in harm's way and returned fire until all personnel were on board the helicopter. As the helicopter took off, Special Agents Vanderbilt, Johnson, and Harris immediately rendered first aid to Special Agent Piersante and controlled his bleeding, maintained an open airway, and stabilized him. Special Agent Piersante was eventually transferred to the Veterans Affairs Medical Center in Richmond, Virginia for continued treatment and rehabilitation. The actions of all agents involved, both before and following the shooting, were very clearly heroic. And that right there was an excerpt from an article by the U.S. Department of Justice, who oversees the DEA, and Special Agent Joseph Piersante survived that round to the head. He became the first ever member of the DEA to receive the Secretary of Defense Medal for the Defense of Freedom, and also received the Federal Congressional Badge of Bravery. But that bullet did do significant damage. Most significantly, it rendered Special Agent Piersante blind. But he has continued to drive on, to grow, to teach, and to set an incredible example of perseverance for all of us. And it is an honor to have him here with us tonight to share some of his experiences and lessons learned. Joe, thanks for coming on, man.
You're quite welcome. First, I want to say it's an honor to be part of this podcast, and I was very flattered that you guys asked me to be on it.
Well, you're the first DEA guy we've got here, so you got another first under your belt now. But you didn't start off in the D. I like to go back to the beginning. Let's figure out where you came from, how you ended up being who you are. Born in Detroit, right?
Yes, actually was born and raised in the city of Detroit. My dad was a police officer there, And at the time, there was residency, so we had to live in the city. I'm actually third generation law enforcement officer in my family.
When you say there was residency, what do you mean by that?
You have to live in the city.
You had to live in the city to be a police officer in the city?
Yes, or at the time, any city workers.
Wow.
If you're a firefighter or, work for city sanitation, things like that, you had to live in the city. So we all kind of clustered and huddled in little areas.
And your dad was a cop his whole career? That was what he did?
Yes. He retired in Detroit in 1990, then went on to work at the University of Michigan, their police department, and eventually became chief of police there.
Did you have aspirations of being a cop as well?
Yes. Growing up, I always played team sports. I was fortunate enough to play college and football at a smaller school in southern Michigan. And I always liked that kind of team atmosphere. And my father, he worked conspiracy narcotics for years and years in the Detroit Police Department. And I just saw that kind of team environment, team atmosphere, and it kind of drew me to it. Even though my father never pushed me to go into law enforcement. And actually, when I went away to college, my major at first was sports medicine. I wanted to be an athletic trainer. And then the more I thought about it, I'm like, you know what? I really want to do this law enforcement thing. Mm-hmm. So I talked to my dad, and he's like, okay, I support you. And if you're going to do the law enforcement, he worked on a DEA task force and a drug task force there. And he says, I would encourage you to go federal just because the pay is a little better. You get to travel the world and you get to see and do a lot of things. And I've always been a kind of rough, tumble person, and DEA has always been known as the kind of blue-collar federal law enforcement. So he kind of tried to push me that way, and he had friends that still worked there. But unfortunately, when I graduated from college in December of 91, DEA was on a hiring freeze. So I went back home to the Detroit, Michigan area, and Detroit police was hiring, so I put my application there and got hired by the Detroit Police Department in February of 1993.
Now, when you say you were a rough and tumble kid, to me it seems like when I talk to people that had police as parents, they're either like really good on the straight and narrow or they're kind of rebellious. Where were you at? Were you somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, I kind of had a rebellious streak to me, but luckily I had a strong father and a strong grandfather, and kind of kept me on the straight and narrow. And my father was pretty tough on me, but he always supported me. He always went to my athletic events, was there all the time. He would put a foot up my ass if I needed, but also, was very loving and supporting. I could still call my father today, hey, Dad, I need help. He's like, okay, I'm on the way. And a little more background, my dad's father and actually my mother's father, they both served in World War II. And my dad's father, he actually landed in Omaha Beach on D-Day and the second wave, and later got a Silver Star pushing through Germany.
Dang. Did you have brothers and sisters?
I have one sister. She's 4 years younger than me.
Mm-hmm. But you were kind of the only son, so your dad was at every sporting event that there was.
Oh, yes. And he coached me every sport but football. But we always, even at grade school, he would video my games at the old VHS video cameras, and we sit down and watch the games after with him, and he'd be like, Joey, they called me, my dad's name is Joe too, and both grandfathers were Joe, so they called me Joey. Joey, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. My mom would be like, leave that poor kid alone.
Hey, how were you in school? Did you feel like you had to do good in school because your dad was kind of keeping an eye on you?
Yeah, I felt, I needed to do, well in school. School things, I would say I have,
I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I'm a pretty athletic guy, but I've always had to work in life for things. I was taught you work hard, you put the effort in, and if you didn't succeed at something, you go back and look at it, and you kind of analyze yourself. Okay, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? what can I do better, I've had a good example to, put hard work in, and most often, hopefully it's going to pay off. And I just had a good example that way.
And you played college football as well.
Yes.
You said. And how was that? How was that? Did you guys win a lot? Did you lose a lot? What lessons did you take away from playing college ball?
I tell you what, I tell everybody, sports teaches a lot of lessons in life. Teaches you how to win, how to lose, how to be a team player, all those things. And I learned valuable lessons from sports. Now, in college, I went to a small school in Southern Michigan called Adrian College. We were the most winningest football team in Michigan in the 80s, all divisions. So we did really well. When I was there, we won 2 league championships and actually went to the Division III college national playoffs in 1988. So it was a good, I was able to get my education, and I excelled in college in football. I knew I wasn't going to be the tallest guy. Bless my mom, she's only like 5 foot. So I better be strong and fast. So that's when I picked up the weights and kind of blew up as soon as I started lifting. So in college, I was an all-league player twice. I was team captain, team MVP. In our league, we had every week they listed an offense and defensive player of the week. I made that defensive player of the week numerous times. So it was a good experience. You get the bond with those the people you play with, and you learn life lessons. And actually in college, you finally get to do classes that you're interested in your major. And I did really well in college. And actually, in my major, I had over a 3-point average and stuff. So. And
you said you transferred, or you switched from wanting to become like an athletic trainer into what?
Sociology, criminal justice.
So you made the decision, hey, I'm going to go be a cop or something like that.
Yes, after my freshman year, at the time at our school, we didn't have a just specific criminal justice program. So it was sociology with the emphasis on criminal justice, and I continued sports medicine as my minor degree.
So then you get done with that. The DEA is not hiring, as you said, and so now you decide you're going to go and become a Detroit cop.
Yes.
Is it hard to apply for? How strict is it? Was it easy to get into? Did you, third generation, do you just get like a welcome mat at the front door to get in there?
I wouldn't say that. But when I showed up to recruiter, it was like, they didn't cut me any slack at all. You got to go take your little eye test and this and that. And, you go through the process. Of course, it's not as intense and as detailed as a process getting hired federally, because you have to get security clearance. Mm-hmm. But I they do a good job, and I had decent credentials, and luckily I just didn't get in a lot of trouble or didn't get caught, so I didn't have bad things on my record. So I got in fairly easy and showed up there and went through the academy, and I'm not only a kind of a musclehead guy, but I'm fairly intelligent, and I graduated top academically in my class and got this lamp of knowledge plaque and stuff, a little genie lamp on there. I say this, no great shakes. I guess my competition there wasn't as a greatest level as the DEA academics, but it was pretty good. You get to teach learn a lot of things, and in Detroit, I grew up there all my life, so I kind of knew what I was getting into. And Detroit on the police department is kind of a baptism by fire. You get to learn how to be the real police real fast. Mm-hmm. It's kind of sink or swim.
And do you immediately just go right out being like a beat cop in the street somewhere?
What they did is they took the top people out of our class and put us in this unit called Tactical Service Section. We were a citywide unit that did crowd control. Also, if there was a barricaded gun person, we would do outer perimeter. And we would work in areas where they were having problems in certain precincts, or the precincts got overrun with calls, and we would go and flood the area and help the precincts out. Mm. So it was kind of like
almost like a QRF, like a quick reaction force?
Kind of like that in a way. But we just answer the priority 1 and 2 calls, like the shots fired, things like that, robberies in progress. We took a little of those higher level calls. So it was pretty crazy. And Detroit's kind of a weird animal. Like, I grew up on the east side, so I mostly was an east side guy. And when I became in TSS, we worked the whole city. So you might be in a couple different areas or a couple different precincts, as they call it, in one day. So where I grew up, if I got out and chased somebody and jumped a couple fences, I knew where the hell I was. And I'll be on the west side, bail out, and I was pretty fast, and I could jump fences pretty good, so I could usually catch a lot of people, and I was in shape. So I'd jump a couple fences, I'd be in a yard holding a suspect at gunpoint, and I wouldn't know where the hell I was at. I'd be like, radio, TAC 3, I'm a couple blocks east of my original location. Next to the burned out garage, but the problem was like every third garage is burned out. So,
so that was the day-to-day. So you did that right out of the academy? That seems like a strange thing to take someone that's brand new and put them in that kind of situation where you're going into these tough calls all the time out of the gate. That's trial by fire.
Oh yes, but which was good is a lot of the better officers worked there at Tactical Service Section. So you got to be trained and learn from some of the better police officers. Mm-hmm. So, you really got to learn the job fast and from some good individuals.
Like, how many people were on the team? Did you guys show up in like a freaking armored truck, or were you
each shift we ran 2 shifts, a day shift and then a power shift. The power shift was 7 at night to 3 in the morning. Those are like the busiest times.
Day shift and power shift.
Yes. So we would roll out there 8 to 10 cars of 2 people in a car. So we would flood an area. So it was good if you needed backup or you needed help. Somebody usually was there fairly fast. But it was intense. And then at the time my dad finished up, he was on the full-time SWAT team in Detroit, and was crazy about Detroit of being a big city. They didn't have a full-time SWAT team until 1986, which to me kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And he was one of the original members on the team, and then after 3 years of working a patrol type unit, you could apply for a special unit or bureau, they call them also, and I tried out for the SWAT team and later made the SWAT team. In my last year on the job, I was on the full-time tactical team, which was, pretty intense. You got to do a lot of fun stuff, and you didn't have to do a lot of paperwork. It was usually the sergeant of the team, he did the write-up after the barricaded gun person, or unless you got into, of course, a shooting, you would have to do a report. And
So you went right from that tactical service section into the SWAT team?
Yes.
How many years did you do the tactical service section?
3 years, and then 1 year on the full-time SWAT team, and then
did you shoot any? Did you fire your weapon at all during those 3 years with the tactical service?
Not with TSS, but on the SWAT team. It took a while to get hired by DEA. Government, sometimes it's hurry up and wait, and I was sitting around and didn't hear anything that I had failed something, and time went by, months went by, and I get a call, and they're like, "Mr. Piersante, are you still interested in a job with DEA?" I said, "Of course I am." "Yeah, we had lost your application. We found it now."
Oh, man.
I'm like, this has every information about me, parents, siblings, every neighbor I've ever had, had, and the process kind of really sped up. So I'm like 3 months out from the academy, and we go to a barricaded gunman in one of the precincts in Detroit, and it's an ex-military person, and they have kind of mental problems, and they would hold the neighborhood and their family at bay of shooting at them every so often. So we respond, and we take over from the precinct, began negotiating with them, and they start shooting at our armored personnel carrier through the window, and it's starting to ramp up. And we had some officers stationed in the backyard, and the person goes out and shooting at them, but they don't have a clear shot at the suspect. And they had a car in the driveway. And my team was on a break. We were like 4 or 5 houses down in between houses. And we had one of the Suburbans we had with us, and we had like half our gear on. And they're like, do not let them get mobile. We feel might try to go for the car. And then sure as crap, they go for the car. So I jump in the passenger side of the Suburban. My buddy jumps in the driver's seat. We're like half dressed. We just got our MP5 submachine gun strapped around us. So we pull behind the car to try to block them in, and they start to ram us. And we're like, oh, crap. And by this time it was dark, and then I see a muzzle flash through the rear window, and they start shooting at us. So I exited the vehicle tactically, and my partner did, and we opened up into the car and unfortunately had to dispatch the person. And I was like, waiting all this time for DEA, and then finally I get in a shooting, but thank God it was a good shooting. I didn't, there was no drama with that, but I was just like, just my luck, wait all this time, and then I get in this, critical incident.
How often were you guys as a SWAT team doing hits?
It varied. Sometimes in a month, 4 or 5 times would be maybe a barricaded gun person. Sometimes we would serve like felony warrants for more dangerous individuals. Once in a while, we go out with narcotics if they were hitting a spot which they deemed was pretty dangerous and needed a little more trained unit, so we'd go and do that. But, did a lot of training, tactical training, a lot of shooting, and as you can attest to, the more you shoot, the more proficient, it's kind of a perishable skill. Mm-hmm. So, we got to do all those type of things. So it was a good experience.
And you were just sporting that 1990s MP5.
Yes, 9mm.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, you're in a vehicle and you have an MP5, and in the 90s for me in the SEAL teams, we used the MP5 and we thought it was cool until we had to shoot somebody that was more than 50 yards away, and all of a sudden you think this is not a good weapon to have.
No, or they have a ballistic vest with plates that's not going through that.
Yeah.
And the A-pillar in cars will stop that 9mm too.
Yeah. That's I guess we've all transitioned away from the MP5 now. But damn, that's an accurate, easy to shoot weapon. I think that's like, sometimes people ask me about home defense weapons, like for a female maybe. And I think, man, an MP5 is not a bad call. You're in the house. You're only going to shoot someone that's in the house, most likely. So I think it's so easy to shoot, so accurate.
Yes, well, there's very, very little to almost no recoil on that weapon.
Yeah, and with a suppressor on them, it's nothing. But that's a lot of experience that you had. I mean, just doing hits all the time in the 90s, just that kind of experience. I remember from the SEAL perspective in the 90s, we looked at SWAT teams, especially, city, big urban center SWAT teams. You guys were doing work all the time. So the experience that you all had, and I, we would work with LA SWAT from time to time. SEALs would work with LA SWAT, and we were kind of envious of the fact that they got to go out and do the job. And it's the same thing for you up there in Detroit in the 90s. If you were in the military in the 90s, chances were you weren't doing anything real.
Yes.
So you getting that experience that's a lot of experience to have in the 90s from that perspective. So meanwhile, you get done with that. You spend this year. So how long were you on the SWAT team for?
About a year.
A year on the SWAT team. And you got picked up for the DEA after 3 months of being at the SWAT team. Is that what you said?
No, I was there a little longer, but it just took, I got in that fatal shooting right 3 months before I was ready to start my academy date.
Got it.
For the academy. I got hired with DEA in June of 1997.
And this was, you like the DEA because and I actually never heard that the DEA was the blue collar of the feds. I like that. I didn't know that before. That's the reputation that they have, huh?
At the time, things are changing in law enforcement now and everything. But at the time, we were kind of the roughnecks, so to speak.
So you get to go to, what is it? They have the DEA Academy. Is that what they have?
Yes, it was in Quantico, Virginia. inside the Quantico military base. And when I went through, us in the FBI shared the same academy. We since have our own academy that's right next to the FBI Academy, but we still share the gun ranges and driving track and gym with the FBI.
And how long is that pipeline?
It's like 16, 18-week academy.
Mm-hmm. And what are you doing? Is it legal? Is it physical? Is it what are you doing?
It's a little bit of everything. Where the police academy was more paramilitary, DEA was more gentleman academy. You didn't have to line up for inspection every day. I see a speckle of lint on your your uniform and getting the front lean and rest position and all that jazz. But it was very intense, very academically challenging. Very physically challenging. We did a lot of shooting, a lot of tactical training, a lot of scenarios. I was very impressed with it. The biggest thing was you're away from your family for 4 months, as opposed when I went to the Detroit Police Academy, it wasn't an overnight thing. You come and go and stuff. But it was a very, very intense academy. And then when I went through the DEA, you couldn't go back to where you were hired from. They had this thing with our administrator, who's the person who runs DEA. You couldn't go back because there might be potential for corruption. And to me, if you're going to be corrupt, you're going to be corrupt wherever you go.
True.
So we, 3/4 of the academy, they put a list out, and different spots opened, and say you got 50 individuals in your academy class, and there's 50 spots, and of course it's where individuals are needed, and of course DEA with the drugs coming up from Mexico, a lot of border spots. So I'm like, well, I don't speak Spanish, so maybe I won't have to go there. A lot of spots in New York, LA, big cities like that, and you get to pick your top 3 choices. You're not guaranteed necessarily to get any one of those, and you can work it out with the class. You get to sit there beforehand and, okay, there's so many spots here. Who wants to put in for one of these spots? And you can kind of work it out, and then you submit your top 3. And like I said, you're not guaranteed to get any of those spots. And if you speak Spanish and there's some border spots, you're probably going to go to the border. And
So what'd you put for your top 3 slots that you wanted?
I put Phoenix, Arizona. Number 1. I had never been to Phoenix, but was going to have to move, and I was married at the time, and my wife at the time had dual custody with her children, 2 boys, young boys, and she's going to have to move away from them, so I kind of let her pick. And then I put Fort Lauderdale and Miami. Being from Michigan, I had a lot of family that lived vacation seasonally in Florida and in the winter months, but I also had a grandmother that had a place in Arizona, and then my wife at the time had a grandfather that lived there. So put in for Phoenix, Arizona, and as long as you weren't like a butthead and this and that, and you more or less got one of your top 3 spots. So I was very fortunate in that. So I got that selected and got Phoenix. And then
So what do you do when you show up? You're a new guy. Are you a new guy? They call you a new guy? What do they call you?
Oh, yeah. They're kind of, effing new guy, all kind of stuff, And so I find out that I'm going to show up there. I'm going to the clandestine laboratory task force group. We're going to be doing meth labs. Now, from Detroit, I've never seen methamphetamine one time.
Really?
But it's not really an urban city drug. Meth's kind of more of a white trash drug, per se. In the city, you have heroin, or they call it in the city heroin, and of course cocaine, crack cocaine, marijuana, and things like that. So I just leave the academy, and they're like, Joe, you're going back to the academy for Clan Lab School. I'm like, oh, shit. So I got stuck in the Clan Lab group for my first 4 years, but it was kind of good because it was a local task force, ran out of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. And you got to learn the basics of narcotics investigations, how to write search warrants, how to deal with informants, which is kind of our bread and butter. And you get to learn the job. So it really taught me how to become a DEA investigator. And I would say on the low end of the estimate, I've been in at least 500 methamphetamine labs. And we really, we're wearing all the protective gear in it, but really don't know what the long-term exposures to all these caustic and hazardous chemicals are.
I had a neighbor whose nephew got involved in meth, and he had been to prison and he got out of prison. And when I met him, the nephew had gotten out of prison, and I met him and was talking to him, and he was, I just got out of prison. He said, and he told me, he said, when I tried crystal meth for the first time, as soon as I tried it, I realized that was the only thing I ever wanted to do for the rest of my life was more crystal meth. And he stole everything from his mom, everything from his grandma, everything from his uncle, everything from all of his friends, ruined every relationship in San Diego, and then went to somewhere else, San Bernardino, and made friends there and stole from all them, and then did that all across the country until he finally wound up in Texas, and that's where he finally got rolled up and sent to prison. But that meth thing is freaking crazy, huh?
It's crazy. These drugs are crazy, especially these harder drugs. Like as you kind of said, it controls their whole life. And most of the labs are smaller. We call them mom and pop labs. They're cooking ounces.
That's cute.
It's they make enough to get their own for free, and sell a little bit to their friends, so they get theirs for free, and they're cooking in these houses with these little kids, and everything is off gassing into the air, getting into the carpet and walls and everything else. So we started bringing Child Protective Services with us when we would do methamphetamine lab warrants. And they would bring the kids to the hospital, and when they would test them, a high percentage of them would test positive for methamphetamine. Oof. Just because the stuff, was in the carpet and the atmosphere. It just breaks my heart, me having a daughter, these little kids involved. And then not only would they get charged with the meth lab and manufacturing, they would get charged with child abuse from CPS also.
So you would do these investigations. Are you getting human intelligence that's telling you, hey, I get my meth from this person over here. Then you find out where that person lives. Then you track them for a little while, figure out where they're doing suspicious activity, and then do you do a hit on it? How does that work?
Yes, that's one of the means with an informant. Hey, informants, some are trying to work off charges. Some are just paid informants, and they go around and that's what they do. So-and-so is manufacturing meth here. I saw, these glassware items. I saw this part of the cooking procedure. I saw these chemicals, and then you do, some more background, and then you do, some investigation, surveillance, and use kind of some of our techniques that we use to, kind of make sure and validate the informant. And we also get information from different places who sell these chemicals. Joe Blow is buying, keeps buying, every month so many pounds of red phosphorus, so many pounds of iodine crystals, or the different stores when you could buy the cold pills, the pseudoephedrine or ephedrine tablets over the counter. They would some stores would work with us, and they would get license plates. So we'd do a workup and find out where these people lived, and started an investigation. And then when we got enough probable cause for a search warrant, we would hit these locations. And now, because of the dangers of meth labs, a lot of times you don't know what the atmosphere was. So when you rated it, you would have to go in with full SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus, because you didn't know what the environment and oxygen level was in the houses. And of course, you got this big tank on your back, and it's kind of cumbersome. And a lot of the local SWAT teams were Clan Lab trained for tactics. So there were little smaller tactical bottles you could use. So a lot of unknowns. And, one of our investigative techniques you go through, and garbage cans when they put it on the curb. So a lot of these meth people to know that we would pull trash. So they would save every bit of lab trash they ever had in one room. So you're missing, mixing acids and bases together, and things are off gassing. So it's not a very safe environment, to say the least.
Real quick, what's a paid informant?
They're actually almost like a professional informant. But it's like for money seizure and drug seizures, we would pay them money. So they go around and work and travel sometimes from city to city just to make money as an informant. And at different times when, budgets and we had good money and, they got a certain percentage of a cash seizure or asset seizure, they can make some fairly decent money.
And what, these are just guys sort of off the street, or do they apply for that job? Or
it's really, you have to fill out a package for a person that wants to be a confidential source. Of course, you have to run their criminal history, make sure they have no active warrants, and, you have to supervise them pretty tight. And, some people get approved to work as informants, some don't, just because their criminal history and their stuff is just so bad. So it's, it's a catch-22. You can't get a choir person or choir boy, to catch people, but it's a fine line, and you have to manage it well.
And as you're doing this, and you say you went into over 500 meth labs in how many years was that?
4 years.
In 4 years. So that's like, hitting a meth lab every 2 or 3, maybe 4 days, going into those things. Did you feel like, hey, we're making a dent, or sometimes did you just feel like we're just overwhelmed and we could keep doing this forever?
It got to the point where it was bad for a while. You almost felt overwhelmed because there were so many. And it was so easy to get the precursor chemicals to manufacture methamphetamine here in the United States. So then we started, as a whole DEA, we started cracking down into the companies that made the ephedrine tablets or the pseudoephedrine pills, which is one of the primary precursor chemicals of methamphetamine, and would track where they're shipping and made them harder to get. And that's why you probably see, like, if you buy any cold medication that has pseudoephedrine, you got to buy it. You have to get it from behind the counter now. Right. Because people were going in and just, buying stealing two boxes, and they called it like smurfing pills, and they would get enough to make, however much methamphetamine they wanted to make. So that started really putting a dent into it. And of course, then originally when I was working these labs, of course, there was a lot of methamphetamine coming up from Mexico, but it wasn't that pure. So a lot of the true tweakers did not want it. They wanted that real pure glass, 98, 99%, pure methamphetamine, which was homegrown made. And then once we cracked down on the precursors and harder to get here, Mexico started picking up their game and started making the real pure methamphetamine down in Mexico and sending it up through the border.
So does that mean you were dealing with the cartel, the big drug cartels?
Yes, a lot. And especially when I worked in Phoenix, of course, that's what it's, the Southwest is controlled by the Mexican drug cartels.
Do you have any, big memorable operations or that you were part of?
Yes. Like I said, most of the labs were like mom and pop tweaker labs, but I was able to do a couple of pretty big, we call them Mexican national labs, where they're making multiple pounds at one time. And the sheriff's office had some information that they had a couple guys came in, they wanted to work for money, and they knew of this big Mexican national lab west of Phoenix in an area called Whispering Ranch. And we're like, okay. I went with another partner to see what they had to say. A lot of times, a lot of things can be BS, and people overhype and overblow it up. So we go out there and, hey, there's this group of these Mexican nationals, they're making, 30, 40, 50 pounds of meth at a time, and they're cooking out in this real rural location, so we get a workup and start doing some investigation and identify where the people are living in the city, and we have an informant that's willing and knows when they're out there cooking. So we're building up a plan, and of course it's out in the middle of nowhere, so there's no address of this place. There's a parcel number, so you're getting like a GPS grid coordinates to hit this place, and that's what's on the search warrant. And how are we going to hit this place and they're cooking? Are we going to do an air assault? What are we going to do? So it got up and it got close. Okay, they said they're going to cook this weekend.
And what's the time frame on all this? Like, how long does this take? Is it weeks? Is it days? Is it months?
It all depends. It varies. I think this one in particular, I think we were working on it for a couple months. Mm-hmm. So the informant says, I think they're going to cook this weekend. I said, okay, we'll get ready. So, we're preparing and getting, as much information as we have typed up in the search warrant and everything. And we knew there was a property close to them, which the guy was kind of involved in. If they were going to run from the lab location, more than likely they were going to go hide at that residence. So the informant calls me, okay, they're going out and buying a bunch of ice. So one of the processes of cooking meth at the end, you got to start adding ice to things and cool it down. So we knew, okay, they're cooking. Mm-hmm. They're getting close to done. So we spin up the team. We put an affidavit what the informant says, and we get it signed by a judge. And we were working with the sheriff's office at the time, and it was decided we're not going to do an air assault. We're going to convoy in there. And, this is a rural location, and you convoy, in a desert type environment, you're kicking up dust and stuff. They can see you coming from 5 miles away.
How big of a team are you bringing? And this is like an assault team?
Yeah, we're bringing the Maricopa County SWAT team. It's probably 20-something individuals. Our lab team, we probably got 10 individuals or so, and then we're bringing chemists and hazmat and everything else. So it's a pretty good force.
Big convoy.
A lot of dust.
Big dust up.
So, of course, the plan was the SWAT team was going to hit the lab location.
Do you put a recon element out at all? Or just do aerial or nothing?
We had an aerial prior, but we didn't have time to get people laid in there to do it. We would have liked that to happen, but it just wasn't feasible with the situation. Yep. So, of course, the SWAT team hits it. Hey, we got a huge lab up cooking, but nobody's here. We're like, oh, shit. So the group that I was with, we go to,
So wait, let me catch that. So the SWAT team hits it, they find the lab, and there's no people there.
Yes, it's up and cooking.
Oh, man. Okay.
So, like I said earlier, I said if they run, they're probably going to go to this other gentleman's house. So we go to that house, and we hear some noise and some scurrying in the house, and we hear like a lady like calling for help. Mm. So we're like, damn, they're in there. So ignorance and circumstances, we enter the house, and they're all trying to hide in this back bedroom. Got one guy's halfway up the chimney. The other guy's lying in bed with his muddy boots and everything out, like he's sleeping, and they're laying on the couch. And I'm like, really, guys? We're going to fall for this. So we brought him back over to the lab and, processed the lab, and ended up being a nice-sized lab. I think they had like 50 pounds of methamphetamine in solution. And then it later led to they end up cooperating and then hit another big lab in South Phoenix. And that individual, he also was running labs in Riverside, California, too. Mm-hmm. So he was wanted, by Riverside Sheriff and this and that. And we ended up hitting them and getting a big lab at that time, and we make entry with the SWAT team. And this guy was living on a horse property, had horses and stuff.
Wait, where was this? This guy was in Phoenix as well?
Yeah.
Or Phoenix area?
Yeah, South Phoenix, actually.
So this guy was a legit, like he had horses and a ranch of some kind?
Oh,
so
yeah.
This guy was doing well.
And had a ranch in Riverside, too.
Yeah, because I kind of get the impression, when you talk about like the mom and pop labs, that a lot of people are just kind of getting away with what they can, and then they eventually get busted.
And they're broke.
But occasionally you have somebody that
broke as the joke. And these people, they're in it for making the money. Mm-hmm. And it's this guy who we hit in South Phoenix. He actually taught the other people in the other lab how to cook. So we go in there, and he's in the back cooking, and he's cooking with a 22-liter flask, a big triple neck flask. It's a good sized flask, about the size of a basketball, a little bigger. So when the SWAT team goes in, he takes the flask and smashes it on the ground. But of course you take the samples there. He's not good. We figure out what's in there, and
Right.
so and we found some methamphetamine in the house and everything. We're like, what's this? Oh, that is feed for the horses, and that's not feed for the damn horses. Come on.
What happens to these guys? You go, then you wrap them up. They immediately go to jail.
Wrap him up. He went to jail. They did some search warrants on his place in Riverside, in California, and then we indicted him and put him in prison for a while.
How long's a while?
Like this guy, his name was Thomas Tajaro Sanchez. I think he got like 10 years.
So he's probably out by. He's probably listening to this right now.
Yeah, probably, perhaps. But this lab. Oh hell, this is back in. This one, I think 99. So
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, he's back out. I forgot to ask you this. When you got in that shooting back when you were with the Detroit, what did you have any lessons learned from that about the way it happened, about how your reaction was? Did you do something well? Did you do something bad? Did you feel like your training worked? Did you feel like your training didn't work? Like how was that experience?
Yes, that's a very good question. With all the training we had, the different scenarios and different barricaded gun people, I just reacted with my training. I saw the muzzle flash, I knew it was gunfire, and I just did what I had to do to neutralize, to stop the threat.
So the training you had worked?
100%. I didn't even think, don't even remember looking through my sights. I know I did. You get that perceptual narrowing, when you're in a fight or flight or a gunfight, where your eyesight increases, your hearing decreases, you start losing fine motor skills.
So you felt all that stuff?
Yes.
What about you were the passenger and another guy was driving?
Yes.
Did he get hit or was he okay?
No, he was okay. He fired like 4 or 5 shots, and I had my MP5 on full automatic, and I just fired bursts until the weapon ran dry.
Damn, going full auto, huh?
Yeah, I was like, hey, I'm going to end this as quick as possible.
Yeah.
People get all these, lucky shots. You're chasing these, perpetrators, whatever, and they're running from you, and they take the gun and shoot it over their head and hit you, dead between the eyes.
Yeah. What about doing all these hits over the years with the DEA down in the Phoenix area? You obviously are starting to pack away some good methodologies and thought processes as you're going to do these things. Like, what were your big takeaways as you developed as a agent?
I always was very tactically proficient, and I think one of my fortes and strong points as an agent was being able to deal with people. And that's what I suggest that anybody who gets in federal law enforcement, I would advise them to be a local law enforcement officer first, but you get to learn the job. You get to learn how to deal with people. And I happen to be very good at dealing with informants, and I could work informants well.
What do you think was that? What made you good at it?
One, I think my street smarts, growing up in Detroit, and being able to talk the lingo and look the part. In life, unfortunately, a lot of times, when you first go in a situation, especially criminals, they're going to size you up. They're going to say, does this individual look like they know what they're doing? Can I trust this person? But a lot of times these people that are working for us, they're risking their life, and they have to feel confident that you're going to do your best to protect them. And I also learned, never promise somebody something you can't deliver. Don't promise them, well, you work a couple weeks and you get a couple, I can make all your charges go away. It's not up to the agents. You have to bring their cooperation attention to the prosecutor, which then brings it to the judge. And, those decisions are made then. And also treat people like a person. You don't have to start, go up talking down to somebody. Mm-hmm. I'm the big bad Fed, and you're just a lowly peon drug dealer. You don't do that. Mm-hmm. I start off giving everybody respect. Now, if you want to go sideways, we'll go sideways. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt at first. And informants too, you got to be careful. They're informants. They're criminals. That they can turn their back on you too. So you got to, you never can trust them 100%. You do your best, and and you lay the ground rules and everything, and then you manage your informants, going on from there. But being having a good informant, you're kind of like their confidant, their therapist, everything else. Your phone's going to be ringing in the middle of the night, and your informant's going to want to talk to you,
because his girlfriend left him.
He
or
left
whatever.
him, or he's they're doing this, they're he's thinking about making a bad. You need to answer those calls, and a lot of people don't like to do that. But if you want to do well at the job at a high level, that's kind of things you have to do. You got to put the work in.
How many sources would you be running at a time? Like, how many people would you be working with? How many informants?
Usually I kept anywhere from 3 to 5 informants at any one given time. And
what does the trajectory of their lives look like? I mean, do they end up, they just do that until they eventually get caught and killed? Do they do it until they eventually, do something that sends them to jail? Do they ever get out of that life?
It's kind of a mixture. Mm-hmm. Some do it until, they think they're slick and they're going to play both sides, and do they get caught and go to prison? Some get killed. They get found out. We do everything we can to protect their identity, and some do it for a while, or some are, trying to help their legal situation or a family member's situation, or just doing it for money, and, eventually move on and get on with their lives and get back into some normalcy of life. And when I was a DEA agent and a police officer, I didn't gauge my success on how many people I arrested and this and that. I gauge my success on how many people did I help to get their life together. Just because a person, gets caught up in drugs or some crime activities, it doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person. They made some bad decisions. So I gauge my success mostly on, hey, how many people this year did I help?
Yeah, that's you must start to really understand the way people operate too, especially dealing with all these people and you're hearing from them all the time, like the insight that you get into interacting with people. They're showing up there, most of them though. Most of the informants have some kind of criminal background, and that's how they end up in this situation?
Most of them do, yes.
Okay. So at what point, or where were you when September 11th happened?
I was in my house in Phoenix getting ready to go to the gym because I never knew how long I was going to work, so I always been into working out and keep myself fit. So I'd get up and work out before work, and I'm sitting there watching the news, and when the first plane hit, it said a small plane just hit the World Trade Center. So then, of course, we're all, people were glued to the TV. Then the second plane hit, and they're like, this is not a small plane. And, of course, all the chaos and everything that went on that day. I ended up going to the gym and, work, hey, we don't know where we're going to get hit from next, so it's all hands on deck. And, you had the plane hit the Pentagon, and our DEA headquarters is right across the expressway from there. So people who had offices on that side saw the plane smash into the Pentagon. And so things were in chaos for a minute, to say the least.
And did they start to think about how to utilize the DEA for immediately trying to assist like the national effort? Did it change? I'm asking, did it change like your immediate life, your immediate job, or was it, okay, well, we still got to, arrest people that are making meth, so you're going to continue doing that, or was it some kind of change?
What kind of happened, one of the changes that happened pretty fast was when we debrief an informant, there's different things you have to put in there, like different blocks. What is the drug-related activity they have known right now? What are the non-drug-related activity? And then they started a terrorist-related activity. Did you know any people doing terrorist-related activities? And being in the Klan lab scene, so a lot of the individuals who sold and made money out of the ephedrine and pseudoephedrine were Middle Eastern individuals. Mm. So of course, they were like, get all your Middle Eastern informants and see if they have any terrorist activity. And we had a lot. DEA had a lot of Middle East, with the drugs and the pseudoephedrine. So FBI then wanted to come over and started debriefing our informants, about terrorist-related activities.
Was there much of a connection, or was it more them just trying to make money?
There was some. There were some. Some were, sending money back and things like that. And when the military first went over to Afghanistan, we had some intel, but we didn't know. Bin Laden had his training facilities over there. But when the U.S. military went over there, they shortly realized that the Taliban and those insurgent groups were making their money for their illegal terror activities by the sale and production of heroin. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the first questions I get. Why was DEA over in Afghanistan? So the military, they knew they were not subject matter experts on that. So that's when they reached out to the DEA. Hey, guys and gals, we need help here.
Right.
And we didn't have a kind of tactical team that was up to speed to do this at the time. Years prior to that, we had an operation called Operation Snowcap, where we were in Colombia and other cocaine manufacturing destinations and hitting coca labs, with partner forces and this and that. So DEA had to start up a team. So they used some of the individuals that worked in Snowcap and developed this FAST team, this Foreign Deployed Advisory and Support Team, to help the military and mentor our partner force over there, because we really don't have over there, any criminal authority. Mm-hmm. So in the Afghans, they were behind the times. So we went over, the military, they got plenty of trigger pullers. And of course, we can pull triggers too. But they went for our expertise on investigations. Mm-hmm. How do we handle these? How do we process these labs? Because in Afghanistan, even though heroin production is crazy, the penalties for getting caught manufacturing drugs over there are very, very severe. And we can actually take somebody off the battlefield a lot longer, for drug-related things than just for, say, you hem somebody up for tactical questioning, and then they're back directly on the battlefield. Mm-hmm. But the issue is, we're working with U.S. and coalition special ops teams over there, because most of these labs are well behind enemy lines, and that's their money. So they're going to fight like hell to keep them. Mm-hmm. So you have to be up to speed to run with these, these special ops guys. So at first they just had put a solicitation out. Hey, this is what the mission's going to be. We need some volunteers. Some of the guys done that in the past, and maybe were special ops guys, but at the current time, maybe they weren't in the best shape. And they would get over there and were having problems keeping up.
Got it.
So that's when our FAST team instituted a selection process. And that selection process, they took various areas of selections from different special ops teams and put a selection together. Mm-hmm.
And at what point did you hear about that, and at what point did you volunteer for it?
I knew the FAST team was going on. I started hearing rumbles about it in 2005 time frame. But the problem is in the field, the basic agents didn't really know what was going on with this FAST team. I had a buddy that went to the FAST team. He was Marine Corps officer, and I was pushing on with my career. And I've always, no matter what I've done, I've tried to go to the highest level, whatever I did in life. So, I was just kind of like, sitting around and I'm like, hey, wonder what this fast team's doing.
Were you still in Phoenix at this time?
Yes, I was.
So you were in Phoenix from like 1998, 1997, 1998, all the way.
1997 until I actually got selected on the fast team in October 2009.
So you're there for a while.
Yes.
So you have over 10 years experience as a DEA agent on the ground doing, was that whole 10 years, was that all that time doing the meth lab stuff?
The first 4 years, and then I went on to a conspiracy group where we worked higher level traffickers. I worked on a task force with a lot of the local officers.
What's the conspiracy group all about? I mean, it sounds cool. We know that, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. A lot of things government sounds real cool, and we have, real cool acronyms and everything else, You're going after mid-level to higher-level dealers. And
still meth mostly? Or are they dealing everything?
Meth, cocaine, marijuana.
Okay.
Heroin. So you had a mixture. So Phoenix is kind of a weird animal. You're kind of close to the border. So it's a transshipment point. So a lot of the drugs are coming up from the southwest border into cities like Tucson and Phoenix, and they're staged there. They only stay there a short period of time, and those drugs are picked up and sent out to the East Coast. So you got to be like on your game to get stuff, because you might have a stash house loaded up one day and it's gone the next. So you had to really be on your game, and move fast to do these things. So I worked in a combination of different groups, and I called my buddy and I'm like, hey, what the hell are you guys doing there? Are you guys just doing training, or are you guys going out and doing missions? He goes, Joe, we're, working with some of the best units in the world.
This is when you're asking one of your buddies about fast.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
What are you guys doing? We're training and working with some of the best units in the world. We're doing things what you would think DEA would be doing. We're doing this high-level stuff. And at the time, every year they would put out a solicitation for to go through the fast selection, and you needed to be at least a GS 12. So that usually takes about 3 to 4 years to get to a GS level 12, and they wanted people who had experience of how to be a DEA agent. So and then you put in for the selection, and then if you get picked, you go through tryouts. And I was 39 when I put in for selection. As we get older, we don't recover as fast as we once did. And
some people.
Yes. And your potential for injury sometimes increases. So I knew I wouldn't quit anything. I was just worried about my old body, holding up. I got a lot of miles on it. 50,000 miles is kind of up. And, there's a lot of different swimming and different testing and different things. And, so I started training and
you're still doing your job, working the conspiracy stuff.
This time I was on a task force group, a West Side task force.
What's the task force group do?
We were a task force on the west side of the city, and we worked with various West Side police departments, and they were all sworn in as federal task force agents. So they had the full powers like of a DEA agent, and you could, do investigations over state lines and everything. And we were hitting a lot of like big marijuana hits, meth hits, cocaine hits. So I was still, doing my full-time job, and then have to get ready and train for the selection.
Mm-hmm. Any good on the conspiracy thing? Like, what's the biggest people you ever rolled up when you were doing the conspiracy gig?
We had one case, this one group, and they were an African-American group. They had people out of Detroit, Atlanta, and Los Angeles, and in Phoenix. They would get their large amounts of shipments of marijuana from the Phoenix and Tucson area. Now we're talking large amounts. I'm talking they would buy 2,000-3,000 pounds of marijuana at a time. And we had information.
From Mexico?
Yes. Well, they buy it in Phoenix. The marijuana came up from Mexico.
Okay.
Of course, you buy it in, Southwest is a lot cheaper than you bring it out east, and you can sell it for almost double the price. So there's a lot of money involved. And we have an informant. These guys are rich, and they have this huge place in this gated community in Scottsdale, and all these truckers that are driving for them and everything.
So it's full on. It's a full on enterprise.
Full on enterprise, but you got to be kind of suspect a little bit. And you're like, this is a little far fetched, So the informant says, okay, they're meeting. They're going to meet their source of supply, and they're going to do a deal, and I'm going to be at the house. So okay, we set up. We have a general area where we think their nice house is. And so we got some people set up in that vicinity, and they go into this residence in Phoenix, and they pull a van in the garage. We're like, okay, this looks good. So the van leaves the garage, and the informant says, okay, they picked up. So sure as shit, they're following the van, and we take it to this gated community in Scottsdale, where you got to, get keyed in and buzzed in and everything. And we sit on the house and get it identified where they're at, and see people coming and going, and they follow them out, and sure as shit, they go to a warehouse too, or there's a semi-truck. We're like, oh, it's on and popping now. So we get enough for a search warrant for the house and the warehouse, and hit it and get a pretty good large amount of marijuana. And during this time, we followed one of the guys to the airport, and we're kind of short numbers. We got people all over the place, and I'm by myself following this guy. And it's very hard to do surveillance by yourself without getting burnt, without them seeing you. And I don't know how I pulled it off, but I did. So
what are you wearing?
Just street clothes.
Just street clothes. I did some of those surveillance and counter surveillance, and dressed up and trying to look like a bum and this and that. Man, I was horrible at it. I was the worst. I was the worst undercover person ever. I don't know. It seems like you would have a similar issue since you're pretty jacked. You just stand out in a crowd.
Yes, so you just kind of,
if you were following me, I'm 100% going to know.
Yes.
100%. There's you're not going to sneak around, follow me. It's not happening.
Yeah, on foot surveillance is very hard, so you're in a vehicle, you're trying to stay far back as you can and everything. And somehow I pulled it off. And as the person got they let the person out to go into the terminal, I got one hand and snapped a photo of him. I don't know how I pulled it off, but I did. And that happened to be the main guy. So we ended up getting a picture of him, and we didn't know, who he was at the time or not, and he was flying back to L.A. So we hit it and, get some people in custody, and then get the person identified who dropped him off, and she had some prior criminal history. So we knew this case was, bigger and tied into all these states and everything. So I told my partner, I said, hey, we're going to go visit this lady tomorrow, and we're going to bluff her. And we're going to say, hey, we got you taking this person, yada, 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 and you're helped in the furtherance of this conspiracy to their drug trafficking organization. You have some criminal history in the past, we're going to potentially look at indicting you and maybe seizing your vehicle. And my partner at the time, she goes, it'll never work. I said, watch.
You're just trying to get her to roll.
Just get her to roll. I said, watch. So we knock on her door.
So you're wearing plain clothes.
Plain clothes. You got a badge around the neck and a chain, kind of like TV and this.
You wear a T-shirt and a pair of jeans?
T-shirt, pair of jeans.
You want to look as unintimidating as possible? Or do you want to look intimidating? What's your character? What character are you going into?
Just kind of low key, intimidating enough, where they know you're federal law enforcement. You're not playing around, but you're trying to. You also learn you got to build rapport with these people too.
Yeah.
To try to get some common interest. And my partner at the time.
Your partner was naysaying this, saying it'll never work?
She's like, I don't think this will work, Joe. And she was a newer agent. And I said, just watch. I said, watch, Kim. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We got like a 50-50 here. Let's give it a try.
And you don't worry that you're going to give away the fact that you're on to them.
At this point, we had, a significant amount of people in custody.
Okay. So they know you're on to them.
They know we're on to them. At what extent, they don't know. But I tell people, too, you can't make cases sitting behind your desk all the time. You got to get out there and shake the bush. So she's kind of naysaying me, and this person ended up being a topless dancer at one of the gentlemen clubs in Phoenix, where there's a lot of the Mexican sources go hang out there, and a lot of the people from out of town come in there to find sources. And this person, this informant, she was known to date a lot of these out-of-town drug dealers, and she would hook them up with the sources of supply. Got it. So we go talk to her and knock on the door, and you can tell by her face, she's like, oh, shit. And we just lay it out. And I said, this is what can happen to you. This is, okay, I'll cooperate. What do you want to know?
Dang.
So we started working with her.
Kim was wrong.
Kim was wrong, yes. So, I guess you need to get lucky sometimes, and I got lucky then. So we ended up using her and going back, and they kept coming to town, but of course they moved their operation to another spot, and then we were able to investigate and look at all these other seizures that happened in different states and tie them all together to these people. Interviewing the truck drivers, got their sources of supply, pulled receipts from hotels and plane things at different times when they were supposed to do these deals, and were able to tie everything together. And some of these people, we had never caught them red-handed with drugs, but just with testimony by the informants, putting the things together by pulling receipts, we ended up hammering this group and getting them all charged and indicted when a lot of these other groups couldn't do it. And I actually helped my partner get her GS-13, because at DEA, our kind of journeyman level is GS-13, and you have to do so many things. You have to have these complicated cases, or did a wiretap, or did some undercover. So I actually helped Kim get her 13, and I was already on the fast team when they went and did the takedown, but they said just to see these people's faces, like, oh shit, you got all this on me, oh crap. And we used her to do quite a bit of other good cases too.
Did you ever do any undercover work?
Yes, I did some.
What was that like?
And everybody thinks it's intense. Everybody thinks that you need to look like a drug addict to do undercover. Now, kind of the contrary, like at DEA, we're dealing with people who are in it to make money. So a lot of these people look like business people. And it's kind of, as long as you talk the talk, you're all right. So undercover, I reverse chemicals and equipment to make meth. Undercover, I bought methamphetamine in larger amounts. I bought heroin. And then there's an individual which a lot of people have heard their name before. They used to be a famous mob hitman, Sammy the Bull Gravano. He was out in Phoenix in witness protection, but still doing bad activities. So they actually put me undercover. He actually had this group of kids out there. They were into MMA, and they were selling ecstasy and steroids, and this group would go around and they would beat up, they would pick up minorities and jump them like 5-on-1. Kind of like a 1%er motorcycle gang thing. And they put me in there to buy steroids from these kids. So I ended up buying steroids from these kids, and it later led to Sammy the Bull getting into additional legal problems.
Well, where's he at right now?
I'm not sure where he's at the moment.
That's crazy. When you're doing these undercover ones that you're talking about, are you staying undercover for a long period of time, or are you basically going undercover for 2 hours to go meet these guys, buy some shit, and then roll out? Did you ever do these guys that seems like they're going undercover for extended periods of time?
That's called like a deep cover operation.
Got it.
Those don't happen that much anymore.
Got it.
There's a lot of risk involved in that. there was some of the pseudo cases where I played a role for months at a time, but a lot of it was done over the phone and stuff. But most of them is you're meeting with the guy, for this hour or two, you're in the undercover role, and then you're moving on to the next thing, and the biggest thing where people think is if, you're undercover and a suspect, are you the police? You're supposed to tell them, yes, I am. You don't have to tell them the truth.
Oh, that's not true.
No, that's not true. And when you're interviewing people, you don't have to tell them the truth either. You're interviewing a couple of people and
when you and Kim went to talk to that girl, you told her you had all this information.
Yes,
that you know.
Or you arrested a couple of people and your buddy's in the next room just spilling his guts on you, saying it's your dope and your gun. No, it's his. And they think you need to tell the truth in that too. You can, in those circumstances, you don't have to necessarily tell the truth.
Did you do a lot of that interrogation type stuff?
Yes.
Did you get trained to do that? Did they send you through training, or was it just what you learned over the years?
In the academy, you learn the basics of it, and there's different schools like the Reed School and everything. I never went to a formal school. Most of that I got was on-the-job training. Mm-hmm. I got with some, agents and some local police that were good at it, and just picked up and learned. Hey, this seems to work. This doesn't work. So I just, like I said, I had kind of a knack at getting people to talk, and also, like I said, good with informants.
Mm-hmm. All right. So after you got done with that conspiracy thing, what was the next thing you had?
The West Side Task Force.
And the West Side Task Force, that's when you're working with the regular police from Phoenix, and you're all working together to try and do good. Do good,
yes. And people don't realize that without the local law enforcement, we can't do our job. The locals, they know the area, they have the local connects and everything. And most of the DEA groups have local law enforcement officers sworn in as task force agents in the groups. Because we can't do the job by ourselves. And it kind of helped me working at a local law enforcement agency first too. I kind of had respect and street cred from a lot of the local officers. And I didn't think I was this big, bad, high, federal agent, and you're just this lowly peon local law enforcement officer. Mm-hmm. I respected them.
Mm-hmm. And so what are you guys doing? You guys going after different levels of drug dealers, or what makes that West Side Task Force different than just regular DEA?
It was we focused on the West Side.
Okay.
In the west area suburbs.
And is it the fact that you're working with them closely and interoperability and exchanging information that gives you a better chance of catching bad guys?
Yes, and it also bolsters our numbers too. And we actually, in this West Side Task Force, we actually worked in one of the West Side Police Agency's off-site locations for the Glendale Police Department in Arizona. So we're actually, you're with them every day, day in, day out.
So same thing, you're doing investigations, but you're utilizing the local cops to help you do the investigations.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're doing that, and then I kind of pulled you back in the story a little bit, but then you started hearing about the Fast Company and what you could do, what that's going to look like, but you're 39 years old, you got some mileage on
yes.
the chassis. And so you're trying to get in shape for that. How'd you find out you got picked up, or what was the application process like?
Well, you had to fill out this questionnaire. I've been on the job, this many years, and this is kind of the background of things I did on the job, and you have to get your concurrence from your supervisor, and then the concurrence from the special agent in charge, whatever division you're in, and you submit it, and if you're qualified, your name is picked to go to selection. So they set a date for selection, and they give you a list of, hey, these are some of the events you're going to have to do. Kind of give you outline how to train for them. You have to do our standard DEA PT test, which is no great shake. You have to do the shooting, pistol and long rifle, but you have to score higher. Mm-hmm. Ruck marches. With weight on you during a certain time, a distance run, and, and all these different thinking and, kind of thinking on your feet and leadership, different tasks and things. And you actually have to, we use this company that before a lot of people in the military go through different special ops selections, they have to take this test online, which is kind of like a psychological and like an IQ test. And you got to answer these questions, and then they can pretty much figure out if a person's going to make it or not through how you do these things.
Somebody needs to tell the damn SEAL teams about that, because we still have an 80% attrition rate after however many years it's been, 60 years, or actually no, it's been freaking 70, 80 years of doing that training and putting people through that training. We still can't figure out who's going to make it.
Well,
they freaking quit.
And we do too, so, and I think we started with, I think there was close to 40 of us in our selection, and only 11 made it through to the end.
Where does the selection take place? Quantico?
The first part, yes. The first week, it takes part in Quantico, all in-house. It's kind of like...
Is it a beatdown?
Oh, yes. It's kind of like, we call it like our Hell Week.
And who's running it? Is it...
Agents from FAST.
And FAST, how long has FAST been around for?
I believe...
Was it created after September 11th?
Yes, after September 11th,
got it.
Yes.
But you said there was a previous... unit that was snowcap.
Yes, that was prior to that.
So they took maybe some old snowcap people, brought them back, see if they could help out, something like that.
Yes, how to get the unit organized and the training and logistics and weaponry. But you're going overseas fighting a war, so you're using weapons and weapon systems the average DEA agent never use in their career.
Right.
You're using belt-fed crew-served weapons, grenade launchers. Handheld mortars,
right?
Carl Gustav rockets, laws, all kind of crap, So, you're doing all this stuff. So they really, invest in you. And if you make it through training, you make it through selection, and you get picked up on a FAST team, you have to at least commit to doing 3 years, because they're putting all this time and effort and training into you. What made most people quit?
How long was it? How long was the selection process?
The first Hell Week was like a week, and you had tier 1 events. They were either pass fail, and if you failed one event, you're gone. And then we had tier 2 events where
tier 1 event would be a forced ruck march.
Forced ruck march,
9 miles. Here's the time. Something like that.
Here's the time. A distance run was like a 5-mile run. Our PT test. Shooting test, things of that nature, a basic swim qual.
Got it.
And then the tier 2 were like this, different other events. And if you failed one tier 2, you were put on probation. And then if you failed another one, you could get removed. We also had peer evals throughout too, because we had learned life lessons. Some people can just fly through all the physical activity things, and some people had a lot of military experience, but they can't play well with others. So you're living in confined spaces, and you're just living with an asshole.
Yeah.
And we didn't have time for that, so you could actually get peered out too. So
are people quitting this selection, or are they just not passing the standards?
About half of both.
Okay.
And when you go through there, they're telling you what you're getting into. This is what you're getting into, and this unit is not for everybody. And just because it may not be for you, it doesn't mean that you're a bad agent, that you can't do your normal job. But this is what you're getting into, and it's a total volunteer unit. So you get people that are going through selection, and you're just getting your dick knocked in the dirt. And and if it was just every day you did like a tier 1 event, it'd be fine. But you're also getting hazed in between, and carrying the logs and the inflatable boats, and doing CrossFit workouts, and
you're 39 years old.
39 years old. You're not getting much sleep, but they're feeding you well.
What was the average age of the rest of the class?
I would say low 30s.
Low 30s. Okay.
So,
Did you have trouble with anything?
The water stuff. I've always
You look like you might be a little bit of a sinker.
and I learned that muscle does not float.
That's why I say that, man. Yeah, we learned that in the SEAL teams. Like, you get these big, jacked guys that are not only big and jacked, also ripped. And that means they don't have a lot of body fat.
And leanness doesn't help either.
Oh, yeah, leanness doesn't help either. Yeah.
You know, so I grew up with a swimming pool, and we had a cottage on the lake in Michigan. So I would say I was fairly competent in water, but and I had to learn in the pool, you have to relax. The more you get yourself worked out, you get oxygen deprived, and then you're screwed.
Yeah.
So, you know, for treading water for long periods of time and, you know, swimming in BDUs and boots and everything, you have to stay calm. You know, we didn't quite do the 50-meter underwater swim like you got. We did a 25, you know, in BDUs. And to me, you know, it's like, you know, they kind of tell you to go deep and, you know, and stroke and glide. And, you know, I'm doing all that. And then when you get close to the wall, it's like I'm starting to do the panic swim. hurry up. You know, and I'm screwing myself, you know. Yeah. You know, so
relax and glide. That's easier said than done in many cases.
Exactly. You know, and keeping your breathing controlled and everything. You know, so you know, after I did enough to pass with the swimming, so afterwards, when I got selected on the fast team, the FBI had a pool over there, so I'd go there a couple times a week and just go in the water and just swim and get better at it. So
how long was the whole selection process?
You know, the first week is like the hell week, and then you do a training phase next. And that's usually a couple months. And that's usually run by an ODA Green Beret team, or with us, it was going to be Naval Special Warfare with the SEALs. And I was the first group that was done by the SEALs. And sometimes the first part goes, and then you go right into your training phase. And
you mean the first part goes? You mean
the hell week,
the little hell week, and then you get a bunch of people to quit.
Yes, and then you go right into your training phase. But we got to have a break because we were going to use Navy Special Warfare and weren't going to be ready for a couple months. So we got to go home and heal up and lick your wounds a little bit. You know, I pretty much had a blister in every part of my foot. I lost every toenail on both feet. And at the time, my girlfriend picked me up from the airport after the hell week, and she's like, "What the hell happened to you?" Of course, I was beat to shit. Had to go to the ER room the next day as my foot was infected. You know, I'm trying to tell them what happened. They're looking at me like, this doesn't sound right,
You
sir.
volunteered for this?
You volunteered for this? And just because you make it through everything, say the hell week, still the fast cadre, they sit down and you have to be asked to go on to the second phase of training. So I made it through that and got to go home and just lick your wounds for a little bit and go back to work in your regular group. And then we reported in early spring. We started selection, I think, February 2009, early spring of that year, to Little Creek, Virginia, to do our second phase of training. So we're like, okay, you know, we're told this is your learning phase. This is supposed to be the gentleman's course now. Roger that. So, you know, the SEALs had never had outside people there either. So we show up, and some of the cadre and some of the people from Team 2 and 10, hey, we got a whole bunch of old BDUs for you guys, and when are you guys getting your badges and this and that? They'd have no clue. I'm like, well, I had my badge for 12 years, and, you know, we pretty much got a lot of high-speed stuff, so we're staying at the Navy Inn there in Little Creek, and so we report 0 dark 30 the first day and for formation of PT, and we go straight to the ocean.
Good times, Team 2.
In the ocean, out of the ocean, you know, sugar cookies, the whole, and I'm like,
oh, really?
I'm like, I thought this was supposed to be a gentleman course. And they were like, we were told to treat you guys like buds. I'm like, oh, who the hell told you that?
Damn.
You know, so, you know, got hammered, but, you know, they kind of, you know, slacked off, you know, for a while. And, you know, he had different things, distance runs and stuff. So we spent time training there, and then we bumped over to Fort Chaffee, Arkansas to do the land warfare part of that. And, you know, it was very, very good training, to say the least. And it was funny, before we went over there and we found out the SEALs were going to do our second phase, and other buddy who was very competent, but he was struggling in the water a little bit. I called him and I was like, "Did you hear who doing our second phase?" He goes, "Yeah, the SEALs." I go, "Oh, shit."
And then you ended up coming out to the West Coast to do some training too, because you.
Yes, later on. That's after I got selected on the fast team.
Okay, so when did you actually get selected?
October of 2009.
Okay.
And just because you make it through all the training, it doesn't mean you're going to be picked up on the fast team. Because as the openings occur, you can get cherry picked from the list.
Got it. So was there anything else about the initial training course when you were at Team 2? You went to Fort Chaffee, you go do training out there. Are you training with a task unit, or are they just putting you through training as your own entity?
That one, it wasn't like they were as our own entity.
Oh, really?
So you had people from Trade It there.
Yep.
And actually a senior chief, Tony Gale, was assigned to us.
Oh, right on.
Do you know him?
Oh, yeah. Tony, he's such a beast. So he's like smaller than me. He's shorter than me. He looks like, how do I describe this? He doesn't look like he's like a super beast, but he's faster than me and he could bench press more than me. So he was like better than me at everything, and no one would ever, suspect that.
And he can go through the obstacle course pretty good too.
He's freaking awesome. He's freaking awesome.
And then
guy,
we
man.
had a
stud.
Master Chief Hitchcock too. That helped out.
Right on. Yeah, I know both those guys
with things. And so it was it was intense. And of course we would do different events, with the team guys. And if we did a distance run, of course, they put their distance run stud out there.
Oh, yeah.
Or if we did a CrossFit workout, they put, their best CrossFitter out there, so they kind of cherry-picked, people, which, I don't blame them, when you show up there. Okay, today we're doing a distance run. You couldn't wear any watch, no GPS, and we're just going to run.
Oh.
And
so you guys did get hooked up with a little bit of extra bonus program.
Yeah, and we wouldn't tell how long we're running for.
Yeah.
I've always been a bigger guy, and I cut weight for that because I knew we were doing all the endurance stuff, so I was sitting around 215, 220. But we had some guys on our team that were like in the 160s. I can run a couple 6-minute miles, but I can't run 6-minute miles for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And we had some of these little rabbits, they could do that, not me. I blow through a CrossFit workout, no problem. But, so we'd go on these distance runs, and you wouldn't know how long you were going for when you were done. It's like, just do your best, Okay, what's the time hack here? Well, we did not telling you. You can't have a watch on, so you don't even know how fast you're going anyways.
Yeah, well, they were treating you like Bud students, because in Buds you don't have a watch, and it's a total pain in the ass because you never know what you're doing. The only thing you can do is just go as hard as you can, because that's the best thing you can do,
Well, in selection, I didn't try to look too far in advance. Mm-hmm. I just took each activity for what it was. When you're being beat down, and on our team day, the last day of the kind of hell week, I was just like, hey, Joe, just take another step. Mm-hmm. Just worry about one more step, and then we'll worry about the rest later. I didn't try to overwhelm myself. Mm-hmm. And I read some things before, about different selections and things, and that's one of the things they said, don't overwhelm yourself. Just worry about one thing at a time. And you make it through that, well, you worry about the next thing then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you get done. So did you do anything besides Chaffee? Besides land warfare with those guys?
We went to Chaffee and then back to the creek. Mm-hmm. And then you would culminate, you're doing FTXs throughout. And then it culminates with a final FTX where you got to hit a target over there.
Right on.
And you go in, with sims and everything. Mm-hmm. And they didn't have the miles gear like we had at Nyland there. Mm-hmm. And, you do a hit, and the group I was in, we had to fast rope on top of this building at night, and it could be tricky, and we're using our DEA pilots. And I hope they can hold a hover good. Because there was always a couple times when guys almost were going down the rope, and the rope's not over the building. And, I've always been a heavy guy. If I'm full kit or I was carrying my AW, I'm not stopping myself on that rope.
That was me too. I'm not. When I'm going, that rope better be in the right spot because I'm going to be at the bottom of it in about 2 seconds, and that's that.
And it's funny when we were doing our fast rope training at Little Creek and the towers and everything. You start with the tower at first, and you do your rappelling and everything, and okay, just take your time, sit down, on the helicopter, and then grab the rope and then slowly spin yourself. Just take your time.
Yeah.
So when we go on the helicopters and first time to free, they're like, go, hurry up, go. What happened to this take your time thing? We're like, F it, I guess we're doing it live,
So you get done with that, and you said that's when you actually got selected or chosen to go to a fast, what do you call it, fast company? Is that
Fast
right?
team.
Fast team. So you actually get selected to go to a fast team, and that's in the fall of 2009.
Correct, October 2009.
And when you get there, are you going? Do you know you're going on a deployment at a certain time?
Well, we knew what team you were going to. We had 5 teams at the time, Alpha through Echo, and each team is made up of 1 supervisor, 8 agents, and 1 intel analyst. So I knew what team I was going on. Then once we got there, they would tell you, okay. We always had a team in Afghanistan all the time. Mm-hmm. And each deployment lasted 120 days, give or take some days. Mm-hmm. So you knew when you were going up. So once I got there, I was assigned to Delta team, which was made up of some senior agents and with some of the newer individuals. And we were set to go to do our first deployment in Afghanistan. Was going to be the spring-summer tour of 2010. And a lot of people don't know, in Afghanistan, there's a fighting season over there. Mm-hmm. It gets bad weather there. Gets winter and stuff like that. So in the spring, summer, that's when all the fighting's going on, and that's when they're harvesting the opium poppy to manufacture the heroin. So that's kind of your busy time. So you get settled in and you start doing your pre-deployment workup, kind of like, with the military. And then we had a group come in. You may be familiar with them. They're made up of ex-Navy Special Warfare guys, mm-hmm. and actually some Dev Group guys called, the David Group.
Okay, right on.
And we actually used your guys' system and developmental groups of combat clearing.
Okay.
So they actually taught us in that, and then that's when we find out before deployment, you guys are going to Camp Billy Macon in Niland, California, and you're doing land warfare with a West Coast SEAL team.
Right on. When was that? Do you remember when that was?
Yes. Right around tax season, I want to say April, May-ish of 2010.
Yeah. I was definitely still there.
And SQT, you weren't there when we first got there.
Yeah.
You showed up at the end.
I show up for the FTXs. Yeah, that's what I would do.
And the SQT was going through there at the time. And so it was a full house there.
Mm-hmm. How was that training?
It was intense. It was, 3 weeks, day and night of, getting, kicked in the balls, And, this is what I was told in the SEAL pre-deployment workup. That's usually the hardest pre-deployment block, or the toughest.
Yeah, the land warfare, especially at that time, was no joke. Yeah.
So there was a lot of buddy carrying,
Yes, there was.
for extreme distances, and different things. But I tell you, you got to learn how to do, land warfare drills very effectively. You got to get to know how to use your equipment, your night vision, your lasers very well. You came out of there well prepared, knowing that something happens in combat, but you ran out there, you're training there for worst case scenario.
Yep.
And so it was
that was always my goal, was that. And the goal was, as crazy as a goal this may seem like, the goal was, okay, I want to make sure that these guys, if they get into a gunfight, it's going to seem easy compared to what they've been through in training. And I had countless guys come back to me and say, hey, this is the situation we were in, here's the gunfight we got in, here's the contact we got in, here's the scenario we were in. And they were able to handle it exquisitely because the training, the land warfare training that they'd been through and the urban training that they'd been through was so hard that the actual combat seemed easy. Now, obviously, can you simulate someone actually getting wounded or actually getting killed? No, you can't. But as far as, especially from a leadership perspective, understanding how to manage all those elements on the battlefield, and then the young shooters being thinking shooters and knowing how to execute, knowing how to operate, knowing how to move themselves, it's just an awesome package that you have this just unified team when they get done with those training cycles. So,
and it was nice because in Nyland, they broke us up and just intermixed us with the team.
Yep.
So they put a couple, with this, fire team, that fire team. Mm-hmm. So they kind of mixed you in. So it was very, very good training. A lot of the terrain and stuff there in Nyland one was good because it's very similar to Afghanistan terrain too.
Yep. We had some other military entities trying to get control of that training site for us. And I remember I put together a brief for my leadership in the chain of command, my most senior leadership in the chain of command. And what I did was I took pictures of Nyland and pictures of Afghanistan, of like SEALs patrolling in Nyland and SEALs patrolling in Afghanistan, and I put together like 5 or 6 of those pictures side by side in a slideshow, and I said, this is the terrain we're fighting in, and this is the terrain we're training in. We can't do any better than this right here, and we need to maintain control of this. And so, yeah, it's almost uncanny how similar those two environments can look.
And I didn't realize when we were there, he had 2 Army Rangers, doing an exchange program to help teach the land warfare there.
Yep. Those Rangers that we would bring out, they're just outstanding guys because we, as SEALs, always want to have an open mind and make sure that we are understanding the tactics, the techniques, the procedures of other units. What do they know better than us? What can they teach us? What can we learn from them? And that's one of the ways that we've always done that, is taking individuals from other units and bringing them to our units, especially to our instructor cadre, so that we can learn more and try and get better. And those Rangers that work with us were just outstanding guys.
And I feel you guys do an outstanding job of your guys' training, like you said, knowing that, hey, there's always, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yep.
And let's see what other people are doing. You put things in your toolbox and, hey, I might use this again, or, hey, I may never use that again, but you have a lot of tools in that toolbox.
Yeah, indeed. So you end up going on deployment to Afghanistan, your first deployment. How's that?
It's intense. Every time we go to Afghanistan, things are a little different. And at the time, we were doing a lot of work with the Army ODAs, the Green Berets there. And at this particular time, we were operating in Panjwai area. Mm-hmm. The Panjwai, Kandahar area is kind of the birthplace of the Taliban, where there's a lot of insurgent activity, but also a lot of heroin production going on there also. So they broke us up into like 2Zs and 3Zs and put us with different units. And a good partner of mine, a friend of mine, Travis Brooks, and myself, we were assigned with 1st Special Forces Group over there, ODA 1231. And they were stationed in Camp Simmons, just a little base outside of Kandahar Airfield, which is like our main base was at Kandahar Airfield in Afghanistan. We were living with the ODA, the first group guys, and we would bring, like I said earlier, our expertise on investigations, and we had our partner force over there, which we were mentoring, and we were living over there with the Green Berets and using our intel information, from the DEA, and also using the military information. And we would try to pair that information, find out where the bigger drug labs were, mm-hmm. where they were selling the chemicals and equipment to manufacture heroin, And we would not go after the opium farmers, the poppy farmers.
Got it.
Because a lot of times they were made to grow the opium. You know, the Taliban came in and they had the biggest stick at the time. Either, you know, you're growing this poppy for us or you're getting killed. You know, so we knew they weren't reaping the benefits, so we would try to find, you know, the people who were getting the money from this. And it's called a narco-terrorism nexus. And so we would hit these bigger locations and take people off the battlefield and train the Afghans how to process and how to conduct these, you know, investigations. And we were, with the Green Berets at the time, they were doing movements to contact, which for the non-military people, and I didn't know at the time because I wasn't in the military before, you know, you basically go in a hot area and you pick a fight, and you assess the enemy, how strong they are, and you stay there for a couple days, and then a lot of times conventional forces are brought in, and we were hitting areas where a lot of drug activity was going on, and of course in Panjwai at the time, they had a lot of implanted IEDs.
Yeah, this is 2010.
Yes.
So IED threat is just full on at this time.
Especially in that area, you know, and that's when they started switching over to like the homemade explosive, the HME, where the metal detector is not picking this stuff up. You know, and we had dogs and stuff with the bomb guys and gals, but sometimes they couldn't smell it, and a lot of times these IEDs are hidden so well, you can't see where they're at. And especially at night under nods, you know, in every mission, people were getting, you know, injured with IEDs. You know, that was, you know, in a straight up fight, most often than not, they couldn't hang with us. You know, so they use their weapon, the IED, and, you know, to inflict terror on us. And, you know, it's like, okay, this is going to be my last step. I have my legs. You know, you're trying to do everything to try to, you know, mitigate it, but, you know, you still never know. So, you know, we're doing these movements to contact, and, you know, we're most often than not hitting these labs behind enemy lines, and that's their money. They're fighting like hell to keep it. You know, so I think that first year, we did about 11 missions or so, and it was only 2 times I didn't have to fire my gun. And I carried a belt-fed weapon at the time. I show up to FASC. Of course, the listeners can't see. I'm a decent-sized guy.
What are you walking around at that time, weight-wise?
230-ish.
Okay. So they're giving you a belt-fed weapon.
Yes. You're like, you're a big guy. You can carry that. I've said, I'm old and it's still heavy. You know?
Did you carry a Mark 48 or Mark 46?
Actually, a Mark 43.
Oh, damn. Okay.
You know, old school M60 Echo 4.
That's freaking crazy.
You know, and that was made, you know, for you guys. You know, we had Mark 48s, but I'm a left-handed rifle shooter. I was all jacked up. I was very left eye dominant, but I shot a pistol right-handed. In that Mark 48, you would eat all the brass and link. The Mark 43 was a little better. I put like a broomstick handle on the front, and I moved it way back, and I could stand up, and I tuck my right elbow real far in, and so I wouldn't catch as much link and brass. You know, the cyclic rate of fire on that Mark 43 is not quite as fast as the 48, but as you know, it's a pretty reliable. Yeah. It's a reliable weapon. You know, so I carried that damn thing every mission. You know, and it's nice to have because it does a lot of damage, but as an automatic gunner, the enemy knows that, so you're a target too.
100%.
You know, and tracers work both ways.
Yes, they do.
And luckily at night, I got a hold of some of the IR tracers, which you can only see under nods, and usually the enemy did not, you know, for the most part, and they did not have night vision capabilities. So, yeah, it was, you fire and you move your position a little bit, and you fire and move your position a little bit, and you know, it's not like TV, you know, that you had a box of 100 rounds on that gun, and it doesn't last for 5 minutes. You know, if you're hammering that trigger down, it goes pretty quick. So you got to learn to conserve your ammo and spread load ammo with other people, too.
Were you going out with, so you're going out with an ODA team at this time?
Yes.
And you also would have Afghan partners with you?
Yes.
So these are pretty big elements that you were going out in?
Yes, and the ODA had their partner force, too.
Oh, so wait. So you guys had your own partner force?
Yes.
Wow. Like a DEA, an Afghan DEA?
Yes, it's the National Interdiction Unit.
Okay.
The Afghans, they were more their investigators, and then the Green Berets, or whatever group, they had their own group too.
Right.
Which the Green Berets like to use the Afghan commandos. That was kind of like their special ops unit. But to be quite honest with you, even like we were working with the best and brightest, it was like herding cats.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It's like, okay, you couldn't do these advanced like wedge and echelon movement. It was like single file.
No, just get in line, and we hope you can stay in line.
Get
for
in
a little
line,
bit.
and please stay in line and stay behind the bomb people and this and that. Don't walk on like the path that look like people walk the most. Don't go over the footbridges, because that's where we're going to place the IEDs. And within 10 minutes on the ground, they're everywhere. And I'm like, oh Jesus, they're going to get me blown up.
How big would these elements be? So you got the ODA team, the commandos, your guys, and then the Afghan DEA, whatever you called them.
Yes.
What are you talking like? You got like 50 people?
Yeah,
something like that?
It depends how big the operation is. A Green Beret ODA team, you got like 12 individuals, and their partner force probably would be around 30, and fast, because we were like twosies and threesies, have 2 to 4 fast agents, and we would bring our partner force. At this particular time, like we could cherry pick people that were the better fighters, and sometimes 2 to 4 we would take out. And to be honest, like I said, we worked the best and brightest. Not a high percentage of them are good fighters, and a lot of times they weren't in great shape. So we're kind of limited what you can do, how long of an infill and exfil you can do, and how complicated a plan you could do. So, it kind of hamstringed us a little bit, but we went out there and got the job done. When we were really hitting them hard, they call it second and third order effects, you could see they were having trouble getting some more of the better munitions and stuff. When we were like just, putting a smackdown on them. And halfway through that near the end of that first tour, we had first group was leaving, and then a group from third group came in, ODA 3116. And they came in, and we did a couple missions with them. And I know you're probably familiar with this, and some of the listeners is, that the Afghans, they use these ICOM radios to talk with each other. We intercept these things. A lot of times they're just talking shit on these damn things. We're killing them, they're dying. No, we found your ID and we're blowing it up, That's what you just heard. And, so we're getting at the end of our tour, and we're going to hit this spot called Hazi Madad in Afghanistan. And there was a little combat outpost out there, which I think the 101st Airborne was out there, and they had a Taliban hospital in the area. Of course, they were growing a lot of marijuana and poppy seed out there, but they also had several dishkas in the area. The enemy did. And that's the old like Russian anti-aircraft weaponry.
51.
And they would harass the coalition forces, their air. So, we had several tasks in this mission, to find drug, to eradicate some of the drug activity going on, and also find these dishkas. So the Rangers went in there before us, and they got in a pretty good dust up and tick. TIC stands for Troops in Contact, and they lost a couple Rangers. So we were going in a couple days after, and you're doing your pre-mission briefing, and we're going to get inserted with 3 CH-47 4 CH-47 helicopters, and there's a high probability we're going to lose a helicopter on infill with the dishkas. And, you're sitting there the night before, oh, shit, I hope it's not me. You're like in a coffin up there, even most time when we flew with the Green Berets, they used to like to use the Night Stalkers, the 160th. And we would always infill and exfil with a Spectre gunship overhead. But still, that's not any guarantees.
No.
And so you said the night before, like, I hope it's not me. Hope it's not our helicopter that gets shot down. So we plan this op, and we infill. We usually like to go in at night to use our advantage with our technology, with our night vision and lasers. Because I stated earlier, the enemy usually doesn't have that. So we like to go in at night, get a foothold the best we can, and then when it's light, search. Mm-hmm. And then, exfil the next day, or depending on how long the mission's going to last, a day or two or whatnot. So we fly in and we take a little incoming fire, but all 4 birds make it. So we begin to sweep through and get a foothold. And then for individuals who are listening that have been over there, usually they'll try to hit or probe you, the enemy over there, after morning prayer. Mm-hmm. And then usually they do their first hit and try to feel you out. So we get in a couple little skirmishes, see them plant some IEDs, and we're moving through, and we didn't find where we were at. We didn't find the Dishkas. We were finding some marijuana fields and this and that. Throughout the day, they're talking. You're like, we need to find a good place to set up our PKM machine guns, meaning the enemy. Mm-hmm. And, we blew up an IED, and like I said, we are killing them, the Americans are screaming. And so, they're, setting up their PKMs. They're like, okay, you're just, whatever, you're bullshitting, whatever, screw you. So this is in August, and it's hot as hell. And we didn't have any close air support at the time, because they got called over to some other units that were having some contact. So we had a Predator overhead, but the Predator's wings iced over and had to land. This is 115 degrees, 110 degrees, mm-hmm. But they're flying up higher, and right. I don't know the specifics and stuff. So, we're in sporadic skirmishes. So we were under fire, so they're like, we're not going to send air to pick you up because the LZ is going to be pretty hot. So you're going to have to we're going to have to try to make it to this combat outpost over there, which was probably a couple clicks away at the time. So we move out, and we stop at this little village area, and we get set up to make our final push. And it was just, the villagers there we had a funny sense, mm-hmm. like a spider. Something's not right. We get in there. Where are your IDs? We do not know where they are. Okay, you're going to go out in front of us, and you're going to take us through. And you get to a spot. I will not go any further. You must kill me. Oh, I thought you didn't know where the IDs were. So we found a couple IDs and blew them up, and so determination is made. We're going to make it to the combat outpost. So at this time, we're probably about click and a half away or so. So we're moving through. This is daylight, and we're in a single file, and one of our guys sees some movements in this little hut above us, and he's like, tells one of the Green Berets, hey, I think I saw some movement. So he glasses it with his scope and doesn't see anything. So we're moving out, and I'm next to a pony wall, probably a couple foot pony wall to my right of me. And I'll tell you one thing, those old mud buildings, when you're over there, those mud huts, you can explain it to people, but unless you're over there, you can't believe people still live like this. But those things do a hell of a job of stopping bullets and stuff. So we're going through, and then sure as shit, they were looking for a place to set up the PKMs. We got caught in a near ambush. So I got bullets going over my head, coming to the side of me, and people are calling off. We got 4 people hit right off the bat when the ambush opened. One being the ODA team sergeant, and he's like, I got a femoral bleed. And we're like, oh, shit. So I'm rocking my .43, and I usually carry about 400 rounds of ammo on me, and we had spread loaded some more. And so, I'm trying to pick up like puffs of smoke where I think enemy fire is coming from. But I'm also trying to conserve some of my ammo too, because if we start getting overrun, I want to have some. But I always carried a pistol with me too, and at least one frag grenade. Because if I could help, I wasn't, I was going to fight to then. I don't want to be taken alive. And so I'm rocking through ammo and being the near ambush. People are throwing hand grenades. It was that close. Firing law rockets. And I asked one of our Afghan counterparts who spoke English, and the ODA counterparts, they carried the full-length 240 Bravos.
Chuck.
So it's the same round that the Mark 43 would fire. So I'm like, go get me some ammo. So he runs out and brings me back a little link of ammo, about 25 rounds. Like, what am I going to do with this? So I just link it on one of my belts, and I said, okay. And so we're fighting, and we finally get some close air support. We get a F-16 from the UAE, but they won't fire. And, we got people hit, and we got medevac coming in. And I tell you, those medevac pilots have balls of steel. When they started coming in, the RPGs were shooting up all around them. They landed those birds and got our most severely wounded people out of there. And, back to, higher care, so we finally get some close air support to suppress it a little bit. The 101st hears all this activity going out, so they bring some of their gun trucks, but they can't get too close to us. So we're like, okay, we got to we're getting a little break. So like, okay, we got to make it to this combat outpost. So we did our version of the Mogadishu Mile there, where, you're running and shooting and you're not caring about the IEDs at this time. We had to cross open field. I guess, you're up, you see me, I'm down. I guess if I step on some shit, I guess I'm going to blow up. And, they get their gun trucks out there and they start shooting, getting suppressive fire. And we ended up getting to the combat outpost. And, of course, we all look like soup sandwiches. When I'm done, I was like, you guys are out there? He goes, yeah. And I learned in a combat, we got stationed, set there and, got some rest. And we're going to go to the chow hall and get some food. And that's when I learned most of the bases we were staying at did unlimited food. And that's when I learned the combat outposts, just limited rations.
Yeah.
You only get to, what's there, a little serving, So grace of God, everybody ended up surviving. We had some injuries, but we ended up surviving. So that concluded my tour. And I tell you what, I had I thought it was going to end that day. Because when you come close to running ammo, you're like, oh, shit. What the hell am I going to do? So it was quite an experience. So we kind of went out in a bang that first tour.
Yeah. So yeah, you definitely seemed to end that deployment with a bang. When you got done with that deployment, as you looked back at it, what were some of the takeaways that you got from your experiences there?
Like anything I've done in life, okay, every mission I would take it. For each mission, it's like, okay, these are the things I did right in the mission. These are the things I want to do the same again. And these are the things I did wrong and I never want to do again. So each thing, I looked at myself critically. Mm-hmm. I've always been probably my own worst critic. These, I don't want to do that ever again, and this is what I want to do. And you can probably relate, and some of our listeners probably, the more you're in that environment, you never get 100% used to it, but you get calmer during it. I remember my very first operation, it's Old Dark 30, with the Green Berets that year, and lucky we didn't get any ticks or anything, is I remember landing in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, and I said, I guess this shit's for real now. And I'm just trying to make sure I don't lose my element and night vision. It's, it's not the easiest to see, and we had some pretty decent night vision. It's like, please, Lord, let me keep up with the people in my group and not get lost out here by myself. So, and I was talking to some fellow agents back in Arizona when I got back, and I was telling them stories, this is what we're doing, You're like, oh, you're bullshitting. There's no way you did that shit. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, we did. Mm-hmm. It's common, everything kind of fell into place where I don't know if it ever will happen again. You're at war with a country that has a drug nexus.
Right.
So as I did things as a DA agent, I never thought in a million years I'd be doing. And, people would ask me, were you scared or nervous? I said, yeah, hell yeah, I was. I said, but you still had a job to do. There's nothing, scarier feeling when you're going to land and you're giving, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and you hear the door gunners open up. You're going into a hot LZ. You had to unass this bird and, start putting some fire down. But I explained it to it. It's like at the amusement park. You're riding the biggest, baddest roller coaster. You're scared and nervous. And then when you get done, it's like, okay, when we going back again? I guess I kind of had that warped sense, I've always been kind of an adrenaline junkie, but, it's like, are you nuts? I don't know if I'm nuts, but, I've always, even in football, tend to excel when the pressure was on. Mm-hmm. Some people fold under pressure. Some people can handle it well. Luckily for me, I always had a knack of being able to still function pretty effectively under stress.
When you got home from that deployment, you said you went back to Arizona. Do you?
Oh, no, back to Quantico at the time.
Okay, so you got back to Quantico.
Yes.
So is that where you're actually living now, is in Quantico, since you're with the FAST team?
Well, I'm retired now, but when I was on the FAST team, yes, I was living in the Quantico area. I was living actually in Fredericksburg, Virginia.
Okay. So you get back from that deployment. No one can believe what you did. You can barely believe what you did.
I'm just lucky to make it out there with my life, and have 2 legs still,
And then what's next?
You get to decompress. You get to spend time with your family. You've been gone a while. They send the psychologist in and they kind of debrief you and see if you're having any issues or problems, and you just get to take it easy for a while and to spend time with your family and just relax and recuperate.
And how long is that decompression time?
Usually a month or so.
Nice.
So then, we were scheduled to do our next tour in Afghanistan. It was going to be the early winter tour of 2011. And the meantime, we started operating in the Western Hemisphere also. And we had a team out there, Echo team, which their primary thing was to Western Hemisphere, and they were giving us language training in Spanish and everything. And they were operating in Honduras, a real shithole too. Roatan's real nice, so the scuba diving destination and stuff, but the rest of the country is a disaster. A lot of violence there. So Echo team's going there, and they're doing which is called these air tracks of interest. And we were working in conjunction with Joint Task Force Bravo over there out of Sotocano. And what we're looking for is these small planes, these Cessnas and different things, coming from source countries, like cocaine, Peru and stuff like that, loaded with cocaine, multiple 100 kilos of coke at a time. And they would fly in and land in these remote landing strips, and their so-called remote land was like a road or just like a clearing. And they would come in there at night with no night vision and no runway lights, and just have things lit up and land and try to safely land the plane. But the drug dealers didn't really, as long as the cocaine was okay, they didn't care if the plane got destroyed. So we were sent to, they needed volunteers. So me and another guy from my team volunteered to go and help them out. So we go and we're in Sotocano. We're doing training with our partner force there, getting up to speed in our tactics, how to take down a plane, land and take down a plane, and all that jazz, and working with Joint Task Force Bravo. And right before we got there, we were doing some training, so another team went there. They had one of these air tracks come in, and they launched on it. and actually got in a pretty good firefight. And they actually were shooting RPGs at the military aircraft, the 47s that were bringing them in.
Jeez.
And the Joint Task Force Bravo guys are like, whoa, time out. We're just supposed to provide you guys a minor transportation role. We don't really want to be in the combat here. So when we got there, they made a pretty good seizure and killed some, decent amount of enemy. And so we get there, so they're making well, okay, we have to have so many hours of training, and we have to practice this and that, and so we're practicing and doing all that, waiting to go. And then DEA, we bring some of our air wing assets there, but we just have smaller vehicles, smaller aircraft, kind of like a Super Black Hawk. You can't fit a bunch of people in there, and we were, you're doing assault, you want like a CH-47 or something. So they're making every excuse in the world not to fly us.
And was this for a specific target that you were going after? Or was it just in general they were making excuses not to fly you if a hit happened to come up?
In general.
Okay.
Because they knew that it was going to be gunplay. And one of our Honduran partner forces got shot during that first operation. They had to medevac him out. And they're like, if we sent you guys down there and if somebody gets hurt, we are not flying into a hot LZ to get you. So there's a lot of things. So we had 2 DE aircraft there. So we had a couple good air tracks that came up. So the first one we launched just with our DEA birds. And the amount of fuel they can carry is not that great, so you can't be up that long. And it takes a while for us to get on these bogey birds and get tracking them. So we launched, and we had in each one of these helicopters 2 DEA pilots. We had 2 fast team guys and 2 Honduran partner forces in these birds. And each one of these birds, we had a full-size 240 Bravo on there and stuff. But with that limited people, you're not going to land and fight a force. So at best, we hope to see where they land, and hey, if we got harassed, maybe you could defend yourself and put some fire down, at least disable the aircraft. So we launch twice, and we get on both tracks. But before they landed, we were running low on fuel, so we had to get back. So we're there, and we're staying out at Puerto Castillo, near the Puerto Castillo area. There's a base out there. That's where we're launching from. So it was a pretty big media event. So they all knew we were there. So one of the local drug dealers, he knows we're coming, so he leaves the country. So one of his people that works for him, one of his lieutenants is there. So he concocts this harebrained scheme. He's going to get DEA out of there. We're going to get them out of there so my boss can come back. So we're staying in this hotel.
So wait, so one of the local drug dealers says to himself, I'm going to get the DEA to leave so
yes.
that the big boss man can come back.
The big boss man, El Jefe, can come back.
Got it.
So we're staying in this hotel, and there's off the water there, and there's another hotel there, the Christopher Columbus, where a lot of the military guys are staying, and they had this little airstrip there. So a lot of those fast guys would get in the morning and do PT, and we'd run in the morning. So this guy's scheme was, they knew kind of our schedule, that they were going to, when we got run in the morning, they're going to go and drive up and shoot a couple of us down. So they're going to kill a couple of DEA agents, and DEA's just going to leave.
And wait, you got wind of this? Or this is just what their plan is you found out after the fact?
We ended up getting wind of it because one of the partner force guys we were working from recognized a guy in town, and he said this guy in town got recruited to help kill a couple of us. So he reports back, he reports this to his buddy, and they come to us, and the 2 people they're going to kill in the morning is the big guy, which is me, and then another guy on our team, Dave Clausen, the guy with the funny shorts, because he has these colorful, long, goofy shorts he would wear to run, and they're just going to pull up alongside of us and machine gun us down. So we get wind of this, and then they get us the hell out of there, back to Sotocano, and send us back to the States.
What about the other DEA agents?
They were there like another week and they left. It was just it was at the end of when we were going to leave anyways.
And plus, it's high risk, low reward.
High risk, low reward. JTF Bravo is not flying us, so it was just a mess. We later went back there and had full support and ended up doing some good with some of my other teams.
How'd you feel when you were trying to get out of there, walking from the freaking hotel to the car to the airplane to get you out of there?
I tell you what, we're staying in this hotel, Casa Alemane, House of German, by the water there, and I got a first floor room, and it's a decent sized room. So I'm like, we had to stay one night there. So I'm like barricaded my door. I got my Mark 43 set up, ready to go. My car being ready to go. I'm like, okay, Lord, get me through this night. I said, if they're going to get me, they're going to have to work to get me. So it was.
Were you able to sleep, or did you stay awake all night, finger on the trigger?
I didn't sleep. But I had the belt, down the feed tray cover shut. The weapon cocked back with the safety on. Ready to go. So they're gonna, I'm gonna respond with a burst of gunfire. They try to get through here. So it was like, I survived Afghanistan, and then I'm gonna get hit in Honduras. So I'm coming home. I'm like, oh God, Joe, what are you getting yourself into? And you're volunteering for all this? And at night in Honduras, there would be all this, fully automatic AK-47 gunfire. And the couple who ran the hotel.
Is that just like celebratory fire, or is there fights going on?
I think a little bit of both.
Got it.
And the people who were the proprietors of the hotel said, "Oh, they're just killing chickens. They ain't killing no damn chickens in the middle of the night
with AKs."
With AKs, yeah. Be nothing left of the chicken, So we roll back into the States, and then we're doing our pre-deployment training. Getting ready to go to my next tour in Afghanistan. So again, we're in the fighting season, time frame parameter, and working with these special ops units. If you hadn't worked with them before, and you can probably know this, there's a lot of dick measuring going on.
Check.
It's like, who are you? What can you do if they never work with you? We weren't a special ops unit per se. We're the best that DEA have, but we could shoot, move, and communicate pretty good. And we could hold our own. So a lot of times it took 2 or 3 missions of going out with people. Hey, these guys are pretty good. They're decent. And a lot of people thought that we go in with these units and they would clear it, and then we would come in after the fact. That wasn't the case. We were up there from the front leading elements. So to get to my point, we had our fast team before us that was there in Afghanistan, and at the time, a lot of the U.S. Special Ops units were doing these village stability programs where they were going out and living with the people out, in the villages and getting them to kind of see our way of thinking and views and values. And, we could talk for hours just about that, but we won't get into that here today. So no U.S. Special Ops units were available to do direct action missions. So the Australian commandos stepped up. Hey, we'll do it. And they can only operate in the Helmand province in Afghanistan. And that's a pretty hot insurgent area of activity, and they have a lot of drug production that goes on there. And that's where we have a big base there, Camp Leatherneck, where the Marine Corps is. So they were working, our fast team came in, and they saw we were good to go. So when we got there, we didn't have to go through all that rigmarole. We just hit the ground running. And in fact, the second op we did there, that tour, we had hit the biggest heroin lab to date at that point in time in Afghanistan. And it was just huge. And they weren't used to us being in Helmand, so we weren't running into a lot of in-place IEDs because they weren't used to us being there. but they were still putting up a hell of a fight. You know, you're trying to take their money, and oh, hell no. So we hit that huge lab. We had.
How big is that lab? Like is it?
They're producing at a time multiple hundred kilos of heroin at a time. And in fact, when we came in, they had a lot of it drying out. We didn't know, and you know, the rotor wash of those CH blew a lot of it away. But there was just a ton of chemicals and equipment left. You know, then we can't take all the stuff with us. So we just take representative samples, take photographs, and destroy the rest of the stuff in place. So we're, you know, in the process of destroying the stuff, and we're running into sporadic, you know, gunfire encounters. We got one of our partner force guys got shot in the leg, and we have to bring them to a medevac, and a couple of the Australians got shot, and we're processing this lab. And I tell you, the Australian commandos, they're a very, very effective unit and very good. You know, I kind of put them on par to like maybe our Army Rangers, and they roll in pretty heavy when we roll in too. They will deploy snipers in there first to set up, and if we're rolling heavy, they'll bring a whole mortar company and everything too. So we... and
that's who you started working with, and they were being guided by the Aussies?
Yeah, we were being guided by the Australian
Okay.
commandos.
Okay.
That's who our partner force was. And it's funny because like we'd be talking like this, and you can kind of understand the Aussies, and they have different slang words and stuff. But under stress and under firefight, you can understand what Taylor's saying. You're like, can you 10-9 that last, please? Okay, in my very best English accent, this is what we want you to do. So, we had quite a few prisoners at the time during this op and stuff. And, you're getting ready in the middle of the night, you're loading them on this helicopter, and they never seen helicopters up close. So they're just looking around and they think it's like an alien spaceship. It's like, come on, you come with us. We're not going to execute you. Come on. So we're rip rolling through this tour. We're just making some hell of a seizures. So we're getting close. We got like 3 weeks left to go. It's getting close to Halloween. And this bazaar, Peak Bazaar, and the northern Helmand province pops up hot. And these bazaars out there, like outdoor flea markets with like rolling garage doors and things, and they sell everything from, sundries, shampoos, chickens, but also to include chemicals and equipment to manufacture heroin, IED bomb-making material, and small arms. So this bazaar pops up hot, and our team, fast team that was there before us, Bravo team, had hit this bazaar with the Aussies. And they seized a lot of items, and they got in a pretty big gunfight. And in fact, the supervisor of the fast team, Brett Hamilton, who was in my selection, he was a Marine Corps officer, old, tough, crusty guy. And we were the two oldest guys in our selection. He was a little older than me. They're fighting their way back to the helicopters, and he ends up getting the Forrest Gump wound. A bee jumped up and stung him. He got shot in the buttocks. Hard dude, man. He stayed the rest of the tour. They packed his wound. He was still going on ops and stuff. So we knew we were going to run into some resistance. But when we could hit it with the Aussies, there wasn't an air wing platform available with night vision capabilities that could fly us. So we're like, we really don't want to go during the day. We want to use our technical advantages, but we didn't have that option. And our confidence was, I think, a little higher than it should have been. They say you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So we're going to go. So we're going to use this air wing that's training the Afghan pilots for when we left, they could take over and do stuff. and they were using old Russian Mi-17 troop transport helicopters. Now, it's a pretty robust helicopter. It's not as big as our CH-47, but they move pretty fast. And they get the door gunners. They got on one side a PCAM machine gun, on the other side a GAU minigun. And there's U.S. contract pilots in there with Afghanis, and there's one British guy, British aviator too. So the night before, they tell us, okay, one of the helicopters you guys are using is going to be all Afghan crew and piloted. We're like, ooh, we don't really want to be on that helicopter, nor any of our Aussies, because if they decide that they're going to get their jihad on that day and crash into a mountain, don't want to be on that. And they're not quite as skilled as our pilots. So we're like, okay, we'll go, but our Afghan counterforce is going to infill and exfil on that bird. So we get a plan. We're going to hit the bazaar early morning hours of October 31st, 2011, just after first light. And, we want to get there with no people in the bazaar, so we don't have to monkey around and deal with all that crap. Just get there. We're going to hit this bazaar, then we're going to hit another location after it. So the plan was we arrive in 4 MR-17s. Some fast team members and Australians are going to be in one. The Afghan Pounder Force is going to be in another, and then the Australians are going to be in the other two birds. And the Australians are going to land and kind of set up an outer perimeter to try to keep the enemy from maneuvering in on us. But the only bad thing is it was a little bit of a mountainous area, so the enemy had the high ground on us. And our Afghan partner force are going to land in the helicopter. They're going to search this little village area right outside the bazaar. We're going to link up, and then we're going to search the bazaar in two groups. I was in charge of one of the elements made up of fast team members with our Afghan partner force, and then one of our other guys was leading the other group. So we land, start moving through, hook up with the Afghans, and shortly after infill, we start receiving sporadic incoming fire. Not very effective. So we're moving through and we're finding poppy seed and stuff to manufacture heroin. And I'm standing outside of one of the stalls in the bazaar behind this old beat up car. I hear a shot fired and I hear it hit the beat up car behind me, and then I feel the back of my neck burn. I'm like, oh shit. So I dive into the stall of the bazaar. I put my hand on my back of my neck to see if any blood. I don't see any blood on my glove. I have one of our Afghan translators look at it, and he says, oh, it looks okay, sir. But the bullet got so close I could feel the heat of the bullet burn the back of my neck. So I kind of had my guard up after that, and I'm like, ooh, that's a close call, Joe. So I kind of was using all my techniques and tactics I had learned throughout the years on the police department, on the SWAT team, as a DA agent, as the DEA fast training and prior missions. So shortly after that, over the little shitty loudspeaker system they have over there, the insurgents do a call to arms. Today's your day to die. We must kill the infidels. We must drive them out of our land. So the incoming gunfire really increases. So we really hear the Aussies get into it with them.
And you're still in the bazaar at this point?
We're still in the bazaar.
And the Aussies are on external security?
Yes, and we have the Marine Air Wing providing close air support. And we hear the Marine Air Wing get into it, the Aussies getting into it. So we're finishing up what we have to do. We're taking the samples, taking photographs, and starting to destroy all the stuff. So we do that, and we say, okay, we're like 10 minutes out, and we'll be ready to move. So we start calling our birds to come get us. So they're inbound, and we have to make our way to our exfil locations. We're only about a couple hundred meters away, not far. But we get bogged down in the gunfire. So we can't make our exfil positions in time, so we have to wave the helicopters off. So they go a distance away but keep the rotors spinning. So, at this time, we're like moving in between mud huts and, you're leapfrogging and you're like, I know we have to get the hell out of here because the longer we stay, the more the enemy has time to amass, and it's not going to be good. But, in combat, you can't show fear to other people on your team or squad, even though you're feeling like, I don't know if we're going to get the hell out of here. So you're moving, and we finally get set up in our exfil positions, the Afghans in their little spot, and us and the Aussies. So the 4 helicopters come in, and we're receiving pretty heavy incoming fire, to include belt-fed machine gun fire. Don't recall any RPGs. So the 4 helicopters come in, and we got the Afghan crew and piloted helicopter, that one we're never going to get on in a million years. And 3 land. Guess which one doesn't land? The Afghan crew and piloted helicopter. And afterwards they said because of the brownout conditions with the helicopters picking up all the dust and rotor wash and all the incoming fire, they didn't feel comfortable landing. So instead of waiting for their bird to come, guess what the Afghans do?
Pile on.
To the next helicopter. And that's ours. So they get there first. We're in this open field. We run out there. We're like, get the hell off. They're not moving. I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to go back into that hell. So instead of being shot in this open damn field, we're like, okay, just go. So the 3 helicopters lift off, and then it's us, some fast team members, and several Aussies. So we
how many guys are left on the ground? Like 10, 15 of you?
Yeah, at max. We had from fast. We had Jared, Justin, 2 Matts, Brent, Paul, myself, and a couple Aussies. So like under 10. So of course, all the fire's focused on us at this point. So we take cover in a little ditch. And then our helicopter, short time, lands about 100 meters away, and this is the one we're never going to get on, the Afghan crew and pilot helicopter. So they land, and I remember saying to myself, of course, your heart's racing. You're like, I got to get the hell out of here. I remember saying to myself, this is going to be a shitty run. There's bullets just popping up everywhere. But I knew we couldn't stay. So one of the last memories I kind of have from that day is I get up to run. I remember firing a couple shots on the run towards the direction I felt the insurgents were firing at us from. I guess I got the helicopter about mid-pack, and that's when I paused and was providing fire for the rest of my teammates to get on or near the helicopter. And then once that happened, my team leader, Jared Johnson, said, let's roll, I guess. And that's when I turned left to run onto the helicopter, and then I got hit in the head. At first, he thought I fell, and he's trying to rouse me, and I'm not moving. I'm face first into the ground. And then he rolls me over, and he sees the ballistic glasses I was wearing were shattered, and he sees a hole in my head. So they roll me over, and they're thinking I'm dead, which is very, very possible situation here. You took a round to the head. And so they grab me, scoop me up, throw me in a helicopter. That's when Brent and, he'd been cover fire down. Matt Stewart's trying to get the Afghan door gunners to fire. They're not even firing. And the helicopter's getting shot up. We're getting shot at, and he's like, shoot, shoot, shoot. So they fire a couple rounds, burst into the ground. So he's like, no, shoot, shoot. So he takes, he grabs the gun and starts shooting a little bit. So they throw me on the helicopter, and, they think I'm dead. The helicopter's very loud in there, of course, and everything, so you can't hear breathing. So one of my teammates, Justin Vanderbilt, who actually before DEA, he was a medic in New Orleans, and he was there during Katrina. So he was kind of like one of our more highly trained, kind of our version of like 18 Delta medical guy, even though we all go through pretty intense TCCC combat care and actually live tissue training and stuff. He's alive. He's breathing. So they start getting my stuff cut off, and they apply combat gauze to my head wounds, which is gauze with clotting agent in there. So they're getting that under control. And then a lot of times with facial wounds or different head wounds, you want to try to establish a better airway. And you can do that by a couple different ways. You can do a crike where you cut, the person's throat and you insert an implement in there, help them breathe more. Or you can use a nasopharyngeal airway. And they decide they're going to stick a nasopharyngeal airway up my nose. And in training, we have to insert these in on each other. And
just so everyone knows, this is it's basically like a U-shaped tube that you cram in someone's nose that will open up the airway between your nostrils and like your lungs, not all the way down to your lungs, but like through your head. They're probably, what do you think they are, Joe? Like maybe 5 inches long total, something like that?
Yes, and one end looks like there's a funnel on there, and the other end, and in training, we can put lidocaine in our nose before we do it, but it still sucks. Or no offense intended. When we were training with the SEALs, they allow us to spit on them and stick it up his nose. And these are not fun. No. And when they're cramming this up my nose, I come too. I don't remember any of this. It's probably a good thing. I'm talking, making sense. I recognize people's voices. I'm not complaining about my head, even though I have a hole on each side. I say, get it out of my eyes. The pressure from the high-velocity round, which we think was an armor-piercing round from a belt-fed PKM machine gun, traveling through my head, ruptured both my eye globes and detached both retinas. So they pour saline solutions on my eyes. Of course, that doesn't do jack crap. And then I'm telling them, I got to move my leg. So they think I'm shot in the leg, too, with all the gunfire that was coming at us. And this particular mission, I did not have my belt-fed machine gun. I had my carbine with a suppressor on it. And I had been shooting quite a bit. So when I got knocked unconscious, I fell on the barrel of my rifle and the suppressor, and it burned the inside of my left leg real bad. Mm. And actually, the Cry pants I was wearing were burned. They were burned, and they burned my leg pretty good. So they're working on me, and they're getting me back to the base as quick as possible. And I know my teammates said the thing that scared them, even though the bleeding stopped, my head just kept swelling up and swelling up. They knew there was nothing they could do there, but luckily for me, the helicopter was there when I got shot. So, I usually take the time now to talk about some of the things that I think led to my survivability is that, even though I was severely wounded, by my team providing that fast medical attention, they had stalled my decompensation, giving time for me to get to higher care. And I know it's not in vogue at times or this and that, but for all instances, I should be dead. Talking to the medical professionals, over 80% of the people who get my injury do not survive. And the day I became a police officer, my mother gave me a St. Michael's medallion. It's a patron saint to protect police officers, and I always carried one on me. I had one in my kit. I always did the Psalm 91 prayer before I went on missions and carried a copy on me. That's the prayer of soldiers going into battle for the Lord to protect you. And I had one of my grandfather's dog takes in World War II on me. And it was not my time to go. The Lord had more for me to do. I think some of that is me doing my motivational speaking now, helping others deal with situations and instances. and it just was not my time to go. And then with all our high-speed medical training that we had, once my teammates found that I was alive, nobody panicked. And unfortunately, over there, we had to use our medical training more than what we had liked. So that, and also, I talk about mindset. You have to have this mindset that if you're in a fight for your life, or you're with a suspect or an enemy, and you're fighting for your life, or getting in a shootout, or it could be, you could be at home, you could have an accident or driving a car. If you're in a fight, you have to survive. You have to fight. You have to kick, claw, scratch, gouge, whatever you have to do. You have to think to yourself, I am not going to lose this fight. I am not going to lose. I'm going to survive. I'm going to make it through that. You have to have that mental attitude. I kind of call it the warrior's mindset, or the winning mentality, that I'm going to survive and make it through this. There's no way I'm not going to make it through. Even though at first I was not unconscious, my body and my mind didn't give up. You're gonna make it through this, Joe. I didn't see any bright light or anything. I may have saw some little fire below or something, but it wasn't time. Also, talking to the doctors, I was in really great physical shape when I got shot. And the better shape you're in, a lot of times, the more traumatic injury you can survive. And a lot of times, the better your recovery is. So when I talk to groups, especially military law enforcement groups, I tell people, you don't have to be an Olympic athlete, but please, 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 be in the best shape you can, because it may save your life. You never know. Like I said, it could be a car accident you're in, or you could fall off a ladder at the house. Just please stay in the best shape that you can. So we fly back to the base, Tarrant Count, which we're staying at with the Aussies. So we land on the airfield there, and the ambulance comes out to meet us, and they don't bring a stretcher to the bird. They think they have me on a stretcher. Even though we have them, they didn't have me on one. So I hear this commotion going on. So guess what the guy shot in the head does? He gets off to walk off the helicopter. My teammate's like, no, Joe, we got you. We'll carry you. So they carry me to the ambulance, bring me to the medical facility there. They do what they can for me there.
Do you remember trying to get up and walk?
No. I don't remember talking to my teammates on the helicopter, none of that. All I remember is firing a couple shots on the run. Because, talking to the doctors, because I guess, when I got hit, it was just lights out. And it's kind of your brain's mechanism to protect you. Mm-hmm. And I'm probably glad I don't remember any of that stuff. So they brought me to the medical facility there. They knocked me unconscious, did what they can for me there. And then they make arrangements to fly me in a medevac helicopter to Kandahar Airfield, which they had a neurosurgeon and eye surgeon standing by. So I'm flown over there with one of my teammates, Matt Stewart. We arrive there. So they do an assessment on me there. And it was fortunate for me that day, it was Halloween. So not a lot of groups were doing, or units were doing missions. So they didn't have many casualties in the hospital there. So they first take a look at me, and I guess I'm starting to be kept alive with basic life-saving procedures at this time. And they don't think there's anything they can do to save me. So they're just going to have me pass peacefully and then have me sent back home on an Angel flight, deceased. But the doctor, the neurosurgeon, he's a pretty aggressive guy, and then the nurse that took me there, and he's looking at me, he's talking to my teammates, my teammate that I was talking after in the helicopter. I got up to walk off. I was trying to get whatever's in my eyes out, and he sees what shape I'm in, and he's convinced that if he gets in and performs surgery, that they can get the the bleeding in my head stopped and some of the pressure relieved, at least get me home to the States so my family can see me. Didn't know what condition I was going to be in, even though I was talking in the helicopter, and he had to decide whether I could survive even what he was going to do to me during surgery. And he felt strongly that I had the will that I wasn't going to die. And he told me after the fact, with brain injuries and head injuries, he said there was a smell that somebody gave off that he could tell if they weren't going to make it or not. And he said, I did not have that smell. And the head nurse there, they're bickering back and forth whether, he's fighting in the command, whether they should use their resources to save me. And I guess there's a line in the hospital there. Once you cross over that line, surgery has to take the patient. You can't push him back. So the head nurse at the time, which I'm still friends with, I'm not going to mention her name because I don't want her to get in any trouble, pushed me over that line. So surgery had to take me. So they began to operate on me. The neurosurgeons spend approximately 4.5 hours operating on me. They actually removed the whole frontal skull piece off my head. All my frontal forehead is now titanium. They got the bleeding stopped. They put a valve in there to regulate my pressure. And then the eye surgeon came in, and she's like talking to the main doctor. He's like, is he really survivable? Am I going to spend all this work on somebody where he's just going to be sent home in a box? And that was a possibility, but he says, I think, he's going to make it. So she spent approximately 8 hours piecing my eyes back together with a microscope. And the work she did has given me the opportunity in the future to be able to potentially see more. My left eye has some light perception, and I can see some movement in my left eye, and I can see some shapes, so there's a bigger color contrast between light and dark. So she pieces my eyes back together. So the next day, one of my best friends on my unit, he was in another part of the country trying to get some other ops together. He makes it there, and he flies back en route to the States with me. Of course, they had me on this big, medical plane, pretty much each patient has their own nurse and everything. And we're en route back to the States. And, of course, they're letting my family know what happened and everything. And at the time, I was engaged. And I told my fiance at the time, I said, if I can't get a hold of you, you can't get a hold of me, I'm out on an op. When I get back in, we'll Skype and I'll text you or call you. I said, only worry if 2 people come knocking on the door. So she was a nurse. She worked night shift, and Afghanistan's like 8.5 hours different. And she hears a knock on the door that morning after she got back from work, and she goes to the door, and she sees 2 gentlemen through the window she doesn't recommend, and they put their badges out, and she's like, oh, shit. So she opens the door, and she starts bawling. They're like, he's not dead. He's in surgery. We don't know, but he's alive at this point. So they get all my family notified and everything, and then we had to fly over to Landstuhl, Germany, and they have a pretty good medical thing there with my buddy Travis, and because the pressure in my head was rising, they kept me there for 3 nights, and then they flew me to Andrews Air Force Base. I was going to say Dover, but you don't want to make it to Dover because that means you're dead. So they flew me to Andrews, and then had all my family at the hospital and all the people from DEA and everything, the higher ups, and some of the other people on the other teams waiting to receive me. So they take me via ambulance over to Walter Reed National Naval Medical Hospital in Bethesda, Maryland. So when I arrived, they let my family see me. They plan on doing some other surgeries there. But of course, I'm a mess. I have no frontal skull piece. My head's all caved in. I guess, I'm swollen. I got a tube coming out of almost every part of my body. And they let my family see me. And at the time, my fiance was a intensive care nurse, so she's seen a lot of trauma, a lot of bad things. But I guess when she saw me, of course, when it's your loved ones, it's different. She put her hand on her mouth, screamed, ran out of the room, and passed out. Her dad had to help her off the floor. You know, it's when it's somebody you love and care about, it's different. So they brought me in there. They did some surgeries on me. They reattached my retinas. They cleaned up my head area more in preparation for putting my plate on, my metal plate that I have now on later. But they don't want to put it on too quick because the chance of rejection is greater and everything. So they want to wait. So they do that, and then they put me in an induced coma with that propofol. You want to maybe call it the Michael Jackson drug, the one Michael Jackson used to sleep. God rest Michael Jackson. God rest his soul. It works very good for putting people in a coma, but you can reverse them real quick. But not necessarily. It's not necessarily prescribed for sleep.
Yes, sir.
So they had me on that, and they had me intubated and everything. So they had me in an induced coma for about a week, and then when they were getting ready to bring me out of the coma, they didn't know how I was going to be, even though I was talking and making sense on the helicopter and all that. With the additional trauma of the surgeries, they wouldn't know if I could speak at all. Would I remember anything? Would I have my same personality? But they shortly after they learned I was the same smart-ass Joe I was before. I was a little confused at first. They asked me, where do you live? I'm like, oh, Detroit, Michigan. What do you do? I'm a police officer. What's your dog's name? I said Max. That was my very first dog I had when I was a kid. But I soon, shortly after I got my bearings, I knew who I was at the particular time. I knew who I was working for and everything. So then started my road to recovery. So now I'm blind. I'm not in the best condition physically at this particular time because of the injuries. So they begin to start my recovery process. And I was on a feeding tube for a while, so they had to pull that out, and they trick you. They say, okay, we're going to pull this out on 3. 1, 2, I'm like, oh, you didn't wait for 3. I was like, I'm like, we say that because we want to catch you by surprise. We don't want you to say 3, then pull, and then you tighten it and it makes it worse. So I had to learn how to eat solid food. I failed a couple swallow studies at first, and of course, I'm losing weight by the minute because I'm not being active. And the people at the hospital, oh, he's got a lot of muscle. He's in good shape, And my ex-wife said at the time, or ex-fiance, you didn't see him before. Mm-hmm. So we started making them feed me, like Ensure in between meals and stuff to try to put some more weight on. And we do things like, okay, today your task is, okay, Joe, we'll have you put your shorts on and your T-shirt and your socks. How long is it going to take you? I said, I'll say 5 or 10 minutes or whatever. So then one time I'm sitting there with the physical therapist and my ex, and I'm feeling these shorts. And I'm like, these don't feel like my size. I'm like, what size are these? And of course, my ex doesn't say anything like a church mouse. She's like, she knows she's telling me what size they are. I'm going to throw a hissy fit. So the therapist says, let me see, I'll tell you. She goes, they're medium. I took those shorts, I threw them across the room. I said, I'm a big fella, I wear extra large. If I would have put those extra large shorts on there, they would have fell straight to the floor. Because when I got shot, I was probably 230s, really lean. And they would weigh me on the bed every day. I got down to like 160 something. So those shorts would have...
What was the time frame for that?
Like a month? 2 months. I spent 2 months there. Not long. So we got over that, and then I was confused, and then of course my eye doctor, his name was Dr. Chung there, and a very serious man. So one day we're sitting in my room, my father's there with me, and my teammate Travis, and Dr. Chung walks in, and Travis is like, Dr. Chung, I want to tell you, Joe thinks he's African American. I was all jacked up. So I'm talking and acting like I'm an inner city African American guy and lingo and everything. And Dr. Chung, like, are you serious? And Travis says, yes. And then my dad's like, well, he is from Detroit. So Dr. Chung thought it was pretty serious, but I only acted that way for a couple months, a couple days, and then I got my bearings back. So yeah, it progressed there, and they did everything they can for me there, and then they let me start doing a little bit of workout stuff there, and they brought me to like the little PT gym area, and they're like, okay, we're going to have you do like some little dumbbell stuff. And they're like, okay, tell me which weight.
Where are the 120s?
Yeah, with the weight, tell me it's good. I said, oh, these are too heavy. No, these are too heavy. These are too heavy. Okay, these are good. And then I found out after the fact, Max, Joe, those were the pink dumbbells you were using.
Oh, no.
They're like probably like 2 pounds or what.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't care. I'm getting in work,
Yeah.
So it did that, and they start, teaching you how to operate blind. And I don't know, for some goofy reason, I thought I didn't have any skin on my head where my brain was. I thought it was just like mesh. So they're like, Joe, you need to take a shower. We need to get you a shower. I'm like, I can't get my brain wet. And Max is like, Joe, you have skin there. I'm like, ooh, I do? So you kind of lose all your dignity. You got to go in the shower with this, this nurse or whatever. They're all gowned up in all this rubber gear. And you just, stand there with your birthday suit on, butt naked. I'm like, guess I'm taking a shower,
And so how long was this, recovery process? How long did you stay? Was this still taking place at Bethesda?
Yes. I was there for 2 months.
2 months. So you lost freaking whatever. You went from 230 to 160.
Something, yes.
And now you start rebuilding.
Yes.
Well, and when you start rebuilding, does that really start to take place when you get out of Bethesda?
Yes, because they transferred me down to the McGuire VA down in Richmond, Virginia. After that, so it was kind of nice, but we're getting close to Christmas time now-ish. And so on the weekends, they let me go home as long as I came back Sunday night. And I got to go home for the holidays, and then we started doing learning there a lot more how to operate in a blind world, like use the blind cane, use some of the voiceover stuff like on the computer and things like that. And I began to let me start working out more there. So during this time, I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen to me or not happen to me. And I'm like, our administrator at the time, her name was Michelle Linehart. She was like in charge of us. And she asked my buddy Travis, what does Joe want? He's like, Joe wants to keep working. She goes, we'll make it happen. So even though I didn't meet the physical requirements to be a DEA agent anymore, they kept me on as a DEA agent after this because they figured out the money. You make a lot more retiring as a regular agent rather than taking a medical disability. Mm-hmm. So they kind of hooked me up. And during my stay in Walter Reed, Bethesda, hearing my teammates and my parents talk about, they bring all these wounded service members back home from overseas, tore up bad. A lot of these are younger kids. When this happened to me, I was like 41 years old. I lived a pretty damn good life. And a lot of these kids, maybe not married, maybe newly married, maybe just had some, a child, and, their life has drastically changed forever. So when I would have my pity party and why me, woe is me, I would say, Joe, it always could be worse. Somebody always has it worse than you. You can't control what you don't have anymore. All you can do is work with what you have now. So in life, when bad things happen, we can make a couple choices. We can let life pass us by, or we can get out there and do as much as we can do. And I made a commitment to myself that I'm going to try to do as much blind as what I could see. I didn't know how that was going to look, but I made that commitment. And when there's a will, there's a way. If you want to figure out how to do stuff and make stuff happen, it may not be the same way you used to do it. It may take you a lot longer, but if you really want to do something bad enough, you can do it. So I made that commitment right there, right then. And I tell people when I talk, it's not been easy. Every day is a struggle for me. I still wake up every day blind. You know, I've had a very severe traumatic brain injury. I've had a pretty bad PTSD because of it. And I've done stuff to manage and mitigate that. And, you know, when I talk, you know, with the amount of suicide from service members and this and that, you know, a lot of us want to play we're tough and it doesn't affect us and this and that. But you can't get help unless you admit you have it and ask for the help. Because there are things out there, and I got the stellate ganglion block shot, which helps with PTSD. You have a stellate gland in your neck. When you have PTSD, that gland gets all screwed up, and they go in and deaden the gland, and it's kind of like reboots your brain and your computer, and it helps you tremendously. You know, so there's things out there. So there's things that I've went on and done since I've been blind. I've tandem skydive jumped. And a buddy of mine, his wife out in Monterey, California, runs a skydiving place. And before I wanted to tandem jump, but I've always kind of been over the weight limit. And he says for a tandem, he's like, what are you going to weigh, Joe? I said, I'm about 240 right now. And I knew I couldn't be over 2. He says, come up and we'll make it happen. So when we weighed in, his wife wanted to play, he says, tell me you weigh 230. So my tandem guy that's jumping with me, he takes a look at me, he says, we're going to fall real quick. They're like, how high do you want to jump, Joe? I said, high as we can go. So I guess we jumped at 16,000 feet.
Wow. And
I guess that's the highest you can go we should go without oxygen, any higher than that, you want to be on oxygen, and any higher than that, you need to get FAA approval. So we were the first ones to go out of the bird, and I don't know if it's worse being able to see or not. But you can't look. We jumped out of a King Air, and they opened that door, and the wind's just rushing, and we're the first, and they tell you what to do, and we're gonna rock back on 1, 2, 3, then go, and then put your arms back, and then how to land properly and stuff. But it was definitely a kick in the pants. Would I do it again? Probably yes, because I'm nuts. And even in the hospital, when we're talking about my frontal brain lobe injury, the doctors told my parents, well, he can never be trusted with a credit card anymore. He might just be at work and take all his clothes off. My mom's like, well, he didn't make good decisions to begin with, so he's not going to lose much there. It affected me to an extent, but did not affect me to the extent where it could have, thankfully. So I also do I hunt and shoot blind with special optics.
Oh, damn.
So how does that work?
On top of your rifle, where a scope would sit, you have it's like a high-speed video camera that has built-in Wi-Fi, and it projects to a tablet or a smartphone, and basically it'll show on a tablet or a smartphone like a sight picture of a scope. And you got, assistant gunner, a gunner, and they tell me left, right, up, or down. And as long as my breathing's controlled and I don't jerk the trigger, I can hit a pie plate at 300 meters every time. Since I've been blind, I've shot 5 deer, 2 bucks, and 3 does. I got 2 alligators in Louisiana with we had a Glock pistol with a laser sight, and I remember before watching that show Swamp People When I Can See, I said, they're nuts. I said, you would never catch me in a million years doing that. So an opportunity came up. Hey, Joe, you want to go gator hunting? Oh, yeah, sure. I guess that goes back to my poor decision making. And I tell you, there was some pucker factor going on there, buddy. So I'm with another guy from Fast, and the guy we were with, his brother is a DA agent. And this guy works in the oil business out in Louisiana, New Orleans area, and he does the gator hunting. So we go to a couple of our lines, and if the listeners and whoever said if they've ever seen how they catch them, you have a big like trumbull hook with chicken on it, and they set them up, and the gator bites the chicken and gets caught in this hook, and then you have to go and pull the gator up, and then you got to shoot him. Now, on the show, like Swamp People, they yank on the line to try to get the gator to go nuts for theatrics for TV. Now, how you want to do it, you want to pull them up slow so they don't fight, and a gator can only stay underwater for so long, and yada, yada, yada. So we pull up to the first couple lines, and they're not touched. So we pull up to the third line, and he's like, oh, shit, we got a big one. He's on the bank. He's got the chicken in his mouth. He's about a 10-footer. So we roll up in this little John boat, and we get to the line, and the guy's starting to pull him in. So I'm on my knees. I got this Glock with the laser sight on it, 40 caliber Glock, and I could just press the pad for laser sight, when we're ready, and he can kind of guide me in for the shot. So he's pulling the gator in, and the gator gets under the boat. He's like, oh, shit. So he's like, okay, we're not going to force this. He's got to eventually come up. So I'm thinking, he got the gator's snout not too far from me. I'm on my knees, and I'm like, Joe, what the hell are you doing out here? I'm like, you're blind, and if this gator snaps to bite you, you can't even see to jump back, and then these locals are going to be out, are going to see after the fact, that served him right. Ain't no blind guy, ain't no business out there anyway. What the hell that guy from the city out blind out there hunting alligators to get my arm bit off? So believe me, there was some pucker factor. So the gator starts yanking.
I like the fact that not only you're a little worried you might lose your arm from a gator, but you also don't want to look stupid in front of people. It's always a key thing.
You got to look cool. You can't. Now there's the blind guy, one arm. So the gator starts fighting a little bit, and the guy's like, shit, he bent the hook and got off. So he's like, okay, keep your eye out. My buddy's there with his pistol, and he takes the Glock. He's got a surface. He can only stay down for so long. So he goes, look for the bubbles. He goes, I see bubbles. He goes, he's coming up. So he shoots him. Pow! Hits him in the head. Hits him again. Pow! And the buddy I'm with, so I shoot him too. He goes, yeah. So he shoots him. So we go over to the gator, and then we push him to the shore to try to get this big SOB on the boat. So as we're trying to get him on the boat, I hear another shot. The gator's already got 3 bullets in his head. He opens his eyes again. So the guy hits him in the head again, and he's done. So we got this big gator on the boat, so it takes up all the room. So we have to drop him off to try to check other lines. And we went to our next line. He had like a 9-footer on there, and he was putting up more of a fight, and I got to shoot that one twice. So that was kind of interesting. I've actually, I was in Sun Valley, Idaho last year during hyperbaric oxygen chamber treatments because that increases stem cell activity, trying to get a little more sight back. And I got to downhill snow ski 3 times. I did that when I was younger, and it's counterintuitive, but skiing, you want to lean forward. Mm-hmm. In blind, you don't want to lean forward when you're walking because you want to crack your head on things. And I've actually got stitches a couple times in my eyebrows since I lost my sight because I was in a hurry. So that was fun. That was on my bucket list. I tried slalom water skiing at our cottage up north this last year. I used to ski a lot when I was young. I popped up, but I couldn't get my other foot in the rear boot. My balance was off with blind, so I tried a couple times, and at least I tried. So I did that. I ran 5K races blind, and I've actually, last July, as you know, I'm a little guy. I became the first blind IFBB men's pro bodybuilder in history. Got my pro card. So I did that, and the sky's the limit. There's different things, you can do, and you can't cry over spilled milk, and you can just control what you can control. And a lot of people ask me, what are some of the hardest things getting used to being blind, Joe? I think one of the biggest things, you lose your independence. I just can't get in the car and go somewhere myself. Or if I want to work out, I just can't go by myself. And so you have to rely on other people. And, I'm typical like the law enforcement guy or the real type A. Want to do everything by myself. You can't, if you're falling behind, I'm just going to take over, you want to do it right, do it yourself. I had to learn how to slow down and trust other people. And which was probably good for me. I had to learn to ask for help. I wasn't good at that before. But lucky I have a very good base of friends and teammates and family. And DEA has really stepped up since I've been hurt. Myself or my family has never been without anything. And at first, being in crowds really freaked me out. Because being in law enforcement for as long as I have, you're always taught to be aware of your surroundings. I know you're not supposed to I'm trying to think of the word. Oh God, it'll come to me. But
I was getting on this subject. I was getting debriefed by like a psychologist situation, and I filled out some form, and they're like, one of the things was like, do you feel comfortable in crowds? And I said, do you feel comfortable in crowds? And I was like, well, no. And so, the psychiatrist, is a female. She looks at it. She goes, she says, do you say you don't feel very comfortable in crowds? And this was like, I was back from Iraq, but, whatever. It's been a little bit of time. And she says, you say you don't feel very comfortable in crowds. And I said, well, no, not really. And she goes, well, why is that? And I go, well, there's terrorists in America, right?
Yes.
And she looked like, she started taking copious notes,
Yes.
about my mental health or whatever, which I was just like, hey, it's a reality,
Yes.
It's a reality.
But, but you always want to be aware of your surroundings. Okay, where are my entrances? Where are my exits?
Yeah.
Who looks suspicious? Who doesn't? You're not trying to like stereotype people, but it's all what doesn't look right. And at first, being blind, things, sounds of people sounded closer than what they were or farther than what they were. I was just real uneasy. But over time, I learned to deal with that. So I'm not as jittery and stuff as I once was. I just learned to, trust the people around me. And so, that's one of the things people ask me, do I have a service dog? I don't. I put in for one, but then I got on my left eye, I had a chance to get an artificial cornea in my left eye, and they thought I could get back more vision than I did. So I didn't want to take a dog from somebody who needed it more, and the artificial cornea helped me see a little better, but not as much as we had hoped for. So I still might get a service dog in the future. They're pretty incredible what they can do.
They're awesome. Yeah, very incredible.
And, people ask me, do I get headaches and stuff a lot? No, I never had a headache, thank God. Because people ask that question, and, they ask me, what is, what can you see, what you can't see? Like I said earlier, I can see shapes, I can see light, I can see some movement. On an eye chart, my left eye is 2,400 to 2,500, depending on the day. Anything over 2,200 is legally blind. My right eye is nothing. That's the side the bullet went into. If the eye doctor shines a light, I said, I can see a light. But there's future. With my left eye, I have artificial cornea. So there is help. The thing that's limiting my sight is my optic nerve and retina is still very damaged, but they are working on stem cell for that to regenerate that, and they're still fairly confident in 2 to 5 years I could get more sight back, which which would be nice. And if I do, that would be great. But if not, I'm still going to keep soldiering on and do what, and do what the hell, I can do. And they said, you don't want to be the first for any of these things. You want to let them work the kinks out of this, this stuff first. Before we had all this mess with China, you heard them doing the stem cells and everything over there. And I asked my eye doctor, so I go to the best eye doctors that I can now. So like, you don't want to go over there, Joe. When the technology is good and it works, we'll have it here too. So, just on standby to stand by for that, so, we'll keep going with that. I do my motivational speaking, which gives me purpose now. I've always been, took jobs and different things where to serve people and serve the community. I can't do my job the way I have in the past. But for me to get up there and talk to people and tell my story, one, it's therapeutic for me too, to talk about it. And two, if somebody's having a bad day, a bad year, a bad whatever, that to see there's always somebody that has it worse. It always could be worse. So, you got to count the blessings you have and be thankful for the things that you still have. You can't cry about what you don't have anymore. All you can just do is move on. So, I'm going to continue doing the motivational speaking, which is good, and there's been groups I've talked to where I've got after action reports where people in the audience were going to commit suicide. And they heard me talk and they said, my life's really not that bad. I can do it. So I tell people, if I can do it, you can do it. I've always had a strong will. I've always been very stubborn. That kind of helped me survive, but the stubbornness isn't always so good in relationships, because I could be a pain in the butt. Just ask my girlfriend, and I do really preach the PTSD part too, because we're losing way too many men and women for that. So if you do have it, and I always knew I had it, but I didn't get better until I admitted I had it, because while I was still working, I was afraid I was going to lose my security clearance and this and that. And in all actuality, I would not have. But, there's things and treatments and things you can do for that, like the stellate ganglion block shot is a great thing for that. Finding a good fit with a therapist, that, can work with you. So all those things are important. So to me, I tell people, it's macho to say you have it. It's not macho to have it and say you don't have it. So don't be, a tough guy or a tough gal. There's help out there, but please, seek that help.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's for me, one of my guys, Ryan Job, was also shot in the head, and he also ended up losing his vision. And unfortunately, after that, after one of the many surgeries that he went through, there was some medical complications, and he passed away. But it's for me, meeting you, seeing you, talking to you, you have the same kind of attitude that he had. He had been blind and he was doing all kinds of things. He was climbing Mount Rainier. He had shot a bull elk. He was doing the kind of stuff that you're doing. So it's awesome for me to see someone in your situation that has the same exact attitude that Ryan Job had. Just a warrior badass that just was still driving on regardless.
Oh, one of the things I forgot too, another animal that I shot this past year, I went to West Virginia and I shot a black bear. So it was a female bear, and I named it Penelope after the fact. I got that stuffed. So that's my little Penelope.
What are the workouts? You just do your normal workouts that you used to do for bodybuilding in the first place?
I've been doing it for so long. My very first bodybuilding show was in 1993. I did the Central States in Michigan. After college, I was still looking to something competitive. I've always been a big guy. And I'm pretty knowledgeable about nutrition and the workouts and stuff, but I'm also smart enough to know there's always somebody who knows more than you. So me being blind, I can't see how I look. I can kind of feel when I'm getting leaner and this and that. So I do have a coach. So my coach, I check in at least right now in the off season every week, send them pictures or videos, how I'm looking, answering questions, how's my appetite, how am I feeling this way and that way, getting blood work all the time to make sure everything is functional optimally. Of course, I spend a shit ton of money on supplements. And the coach kind of guy sees my, okay, we'll, you need to do maybe some more fat-burning cardio. We'll arrange your diet this way. And also he sends me workouts too to follow, depending on the time of year, depending on the workout and the rep range and the amount of cardio I'm doing. So it's important too. You have to have a good coach you can trust too. That's good. But a lot of these coaches, unfortunately, blow smoke up their clients' butts. Oh, you look great. You're going to be Mr. Olympia and this and that. And they can't even win a local show, It's like, no. I'd rather have somebody be honest with me, hey, Joe, you looks like you're ready for this competition or you're not. And please tell me. I'll make the corrections I need to make, or maybe we're going to have to wait on, and do a later competition. So, we'll see what the future holds. If I get some more sight back, I would like to do, some tactical training with people, maybe some firearms training. I get more sight back. I could be a coach for people getting ready for competitions, but I couldn't justify now. If I can't see how they look, I can't really do an effective job. So keep moving forward with those things, and if any other opportunities pop up, I'll be willing to do those things. And I'm 52 years old now. You can't let these young guys beat you. So you got to keep yourself in shape.
Yes, sir.
I was work overseas, with these special ops guys, and I'm like, how old are you? 41. I was like, okay, Grandpa. So I got a grandpa for you,
Well, hey, that's awesome. Probably a good place to wrap up. So if people want to, contact you for your speaking, I know you're at joep.us. That's right? For your website?
Yes, I got a website. It's got all my things speaking on there, how to get a hold of me. And I've spoken to all different kind of groups, teams, different kind. I've spoke to, corporations. I spoke to people at Quickens Loans. So whoever wants to hear me run my mouth, I'll talk to.
Awesome. Echo, you got any questions?
Rewind a little bit back to Afghanistan, the heroin poppies. And who's growing that and why?
The Taliban makes the farmers grow it, and the Taliban is growing that because that's their money source income.
Okay, so who do they sell that to?
A lot of that heroin goes to Europe. We get some of it over here in the United States, but the great majority of it goes to the European consumers.
Okay, got it. So just like, in Colombia and stuff like that, Afghanistan is yet just another hub for
another hub, yes. And, it's, a real big country that consumes a lot of heroin is actually Russia, too. They have a pretty bad heroin problem there. But, it's big money, and that's, what funds their insurgency. And the problem is, now that we're gone out of Afghanistan and it's crazy there again. Mm-hmm. They're just growing uncontrolled. And like I said, when we were hitting them hard, we didn't eradicate it, but you can see it was having an effect. Yeah. But now it's just, bonsai. It's open now.
It's crazy.
That must be, as you look at like drugs, you spend so much time in the DEA. When you hear people talk about legalizing drugs, what's your thoughts on that?
And this is just my thoughts only. I've talked to numerous drug addicts, and the common drug that they start with is marijuana. And in my opinion, without a doubt, it's a gateway drug. And the marijuana that's out there now, it's not the same marijuana there even was 5 or 7 years ago. It's so strong, and it could lead to other things. And, we could have a whole debate on that. And every state that it's legalized, the auto accidents has really increased. It's still illegal federally, and for some medical conditions, I can see that it could be useful for. But in my opinion, a lot of people who use it say under the guise of medical, it's just to get high. And that's just my opinion.
Well, Joe, you got any closing thoughts?
Just everybody out there that's listening, like I said, there's a will, there's a way. If you want to get something done, you can get it done. And just, have that mindset and just keep going. And if things get bad or down, tomorrow's a new day. Make it through that day, wake up the next day, and give that next day hell.
Awesome, man. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you coming on here. Appreciate you sharing these lessons that you've learned. And most important, thank you for your incredible service and your incredible sacrifice for our nation. And thanks for what you're doing today, going around, talking to people, being here, just continuing to inspire people to overcome whatever adversity that they're facing. It's an incredible example that you set for all of us. So thank you for being here, and thanks for everything you do.
You're quite welcome. It's my honor and privilege.
And with that, Joe Piersante has left the building. Echo.
Yes, sir.
What'd you think of that?
I'll say, so I'm used to, and you mentioned this before too, we're very used, at this point, I'm very used to, military guys coming up, their mindset, their experience and stuff like that. It was interesting, even though it wasn't a huge deviation, I don't think, but it was like enough of a deviation to seem like a big change to go law enforcement,
Yeah.
And it particularly, okay, I didn't grow up around drugs at all. Like, I don't think I've ever even.
You haven't been to 500 meth house?
No, sir.
Meth labs?
Labs. What do you call it?
Cook labs.
K labs or clandestine
lab unit or something like that.
Yeah. No, the answer is no, I have not. I've never seen meth before. I've seen coke before. I've never seen heroin before. I've seen weed before. Weed is the only one. I've seen a crack head with an empty crack pipe. I don't think I've ever seen real crack before.
Check. Well, definitely, you could probably tell I was exploring the police side of things, and especially the investigation side of things and the setup, because that's let's face it, that's all stuff that I'm not super familiar with, and it's very interesting because it's all about human nature. Informants and dealers and police. It's that's why they make all those movies about that kind of stuff, because there's drama there, right? There's humans interacting in really stressful, life-changing environments. And so that definitely was interesting, and that's he's had a very interesting life, to say the least. I mean, you could probably write a book about that one big bust or the other big bust or the one big, you could write a book about any of those things. And it would be very interesting and fascinating, and you'd learn a lot. So he's done that over and over and over again, and then went to Afghanistan, and then had a hit on his head in Honduras, right? I started thinking about, being in Iraq, when you're out on patrol, you think someone might try and kill you. You think someone will try and kill you, but you think they'll try to kill like you or someone near you. It's not you.
Just generally.
At least I never felt that way. I never felt like, the bullets that say, I always make this joke, hey, bullets say, you don't have a bullet with your name on it. You have a bullet that says to whom it may concern. He had bullets, plural, with his name on them. I didn't really like that feeling.
No.
I mean, you want to talk about, you think I'm paranoid right now, which I am. I'm paranoid about stuff right now. If that was going on, bruh, I would be in a level 12 alert mode. No one would be getting near me. It'd be pretty crazy to see, I think.
There's something very specifically sinister about a plan to kill you.
To kill you specifically. Right.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't think, no one's ever specifically said, we're going to kill Jocko. No. Other than Dean Lister made that one CD.
Yes.
He made the Kill Jocko CD, but that was just a CD. That was just music. He wasn't actually trying to kill me.
No, it was somewhat of a conspiracy, though.
Yeah,
I don't know. I will give him that. The law enforcement part of it too, so a lot of times when you guys start to talk about Iraq, Afghanistan, and I understand, but it does seem like, okay, that was a different time and a faraway place. Mm-hmm. But now he's over here talking about San Bernardino and Phoenix and all this stuff, and you're like, man, all this stuff right now is going on right now. Like probably pretty close to here.
Oh, real close to here.
So, and currently going on right now.
At this moment.
Yes.
Like exactly. At this moment, there's an informant that's sitting buying some drugs from somebody. There's a bust about to happen right now.
Something that I have literally no exposure to. So to me, that is like, oh, man, that's kind of crazy. I did want to ask him about lifting.
Yeah.
But we would have been here for a long time.
That could have been a long
time.
I thought you would at least want to compare bicep workouts with them.
You know my man is getting his lift on.
Oh, for sure. Sure.
Which actually, and I was going to ask him too, but he said he's age 52 right now.
52 right
and
now.
If you can look like that at 52, I mean, I don't know if he's getting ready for a show or something like that, but if you can look like that at 52, that's like, it. Not only is it eye-opening, but it's like promising.
You know what? Let's just go ahead and restate that. If you can look like that at 22 or 32 or 42.
It's true.
Yeah.
I'd be less surprised. But
sure.
It does kind of set this a little bit better of a calibrated standard, kind of gives like those of us who want to maintain muscle mass, we'll say, kind of gives you some hope on that one, And he's not weak either.
Oh, for sure.
So it's not like that.
And he didn't go into much, but I read some stuff about him and some bios and stuff. But he won all kinds of awards for football, and he's just a great athlete and just jack and steel. So for sure, for those of us that want to maintain muscle mass, have you ever met someone that didn't? I guess occasionally you get maybe a wrestler, like a fighter, or someone that's literally going down a weight class below what they can cut. Right. Sometimes people say, "Oh, I'm wrestling at 172. I'm gonna go down to 162, and I'm already shredded. So I'm going to lose muscle mass." Right? Yeah. Occasionally that might happen. Right. I think when people get into if they get into some endurance sports, maybe like triathlon or something, they might want to lose some muscle mass, maybe.
And I'm wait, what are you asking? Like, is there?
Have you ever known somebody that said, "Oh, I'm really looking to find out how I can lose some muscle mass"?
No, no, negative. Just for performance sake. Yes, that's essentially it, but that's a rare case. Just life in general. They say after age 30 or something like that, like things like degenerate pretty quick or whatever.
That's weird.
And then muscle mass is one of those things where if you just lifted. Like, you're going to lose muscle mass as you get older. Straight up. You're just going to lose it.
My daughter was telling me, my daughter's in college and she's studying. But I was up with her and she was telling me that she's out there jacking steel and working out. She's got her little friend group. And which is cool because her little friend group, they're all into working out.
Yeah, it's good.
And she's training that jiu-jitsu. But she was telling me because she's studying some kind of kinesiology, some kind of physiology. Mm-hmm. I keep forgetting what they call it now. When I was younger, so she's studying nutrition science and what we used to call exercise physiology was a minor people would get, right? Sure. They don't call it that anymore. I forget what they call it, but that's essentially
there's kinesiology.
Maybe that's what I think that.
But that's different than exercise physiology.
She's studying stuff. She's studying stuff about working out, kind of, right?
Okay.
Again, getting stronger.
Yes, sir.
But she was saying, hey, if you don't lift, you immediately start like losing muscle,
just
degenerating.
Yeah, and it's not like it doesn't matter like the process. At the end of the day, you're losing your muscle and most of its functionality.
Yeah. Move it or lose it.
Yeah. And then resistance training, which is lifting is the best one, is the thing that induces muscle like growth and or maintenance, depending how big your muscles are. Check. So it makes sense.
So basically go lift, please.
Go
work out, resistance training, that's another thing my daughter was saying. She's saying, oh, your bones.
Yes.
Your bones. If you're not putting your bones under pressure. Yeah. Now that's because you could argue, running is good too, which it is.
Yep.
And you could say swimming good too. Oh, that's good too. But you got to put weight on your body. You got to put resistance on your body to make your bones stronger.
Yeah. And that's the point I think overall that I get from that, so the beginning of what you're essentially saying is all kind of exercise has its like, and major, by the way, when you compare it to no exercise. All exercises have major benefits. Major. They're all different though.
So good. So good. All right. So if you're working out, which you are, you probably need some fuel for you. You get some Jocko Fuel, jockofuel.com. You can get protein. You know, you could get protein from a lot of places. Yep. You can get it from steak, recommended. Yes, chicken, sir. Recommended. Sushi, if you're Echo Charles.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yeah.
What percentage of protein do you get from sushi? Like 70%? And the other 30% is milk?
I would literally say, probably like 50%. Not recently, not, but overall,
do you make sushi at your house ever?
No.
You just have to get it from a place.
Yeah, and you know,
your place.
Do you know?
Do they know your order already? Do you order the same thing all the time?
Yes.
For your whole family, everyone's getting everything. Like everyone's getting the same.
Sarah will
You're like,
get
hey, it's the
different
Charles
stuff.
residence. We need our food. Sarah goes variable.
Literally, like I see your face and you're kind of making a joke, but I mean, kind of.
No. I'm being serious.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
In fact, I call the place because there's a place literally walking distance from my house.
They got caller ID?
Yep.
Oh, so they're like,
say,
it's
hi,
in
Echo.
the oven, son.
Yep. No, it's not in the oven.
Oh, it's getting cut raw.
Yes, sir.
Under the knife.
I'll call. They'll be like, hi, Echo, how are you? Yeah. That's it. That's how they answer the phone.
Yeah.
Then I'll be like, I want this. I got to say my order. And she already knows. Boom, 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 boom. Yes, fully.
How much is the cost?
It depends. So some days they're closed or they close late. So or they close at like 9:30, and there's another place that closes at midnight. So I'll get it delivered at midnight. That one's way more. That one's like $100 per just for me.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
How about at for the whole
spot.
family? No. How about just you at the regular spot?
Oh, like 60, 65.
So okay.
That's a good deal given like what I get. They have good prices over there. Kaki sushi. Piersante is good.
Well, you're probably gonna need some milk to wash that down.
Yes, sir.
To get the sweetness, because sushi's not sweet, right? Is it?
No, sir. It is not sweet. You can get some mochi ice cream afterwards. If
I don't
you
like mochi ice cream.
Dang, bro.
I don't like that. It tastes like uncooked, bread around. What do they call that? What do they call? It tastes like uncooked bread wrapped around a piece of ice cream. Who made that up? Right? Who made that up? Right?
What makes that funny is how accurate you kind of are.
It is, right?
In a way. Like, if you look at a certain way. Because it is essentially like a dough.
That's
like,
right, dough.
Okay.
Uncooked
But it's like
dough,
rice
right?
dough. Like, it's mochi. That's why. You know what mochi is?
No.
Have you ever had mochi? Just mochi?
No.
You know that wrapping that you're talking about? It's just that. Right, tastes good. Right, in Hawaii you can get it. Oh man, it's the best.
But my family was like somehow amped about mochi, so they got me amped. They got me hyped. This was a couple of years ago. We'll get this dessert. Like we had to go somewhere to get it, right?
Yeah.
So we get in the car, we're going to get mochi. And I get mine. I'm like, I don't think mine's cooked. Because it doesn't taste good, right?
Yeah.
It tastes like dough.
Well,
like you said, it's dough.
Is it mochi ice cream?
Yeah, there's ice cream in the middle of it. But you wrap it in a piece of dough. Like, what's the point?
Yeah, that's
Why don't
true.
you do that? Why would you do that?
You are right, because it's not that sweet either. So you're like, oh, I feel like mine's like...
No, it's not. So anyways.
All right, so if you're not into mochi ice cream, and because mochi ice cream is just ice cream, really, so that's not healthy. Milk, on the other hand, healthy. Way more protein than mochi
and
ice
it
cream.
doesn't taste like dough. It doesn't taste like dry flour dough.
Is it odd that I'm like, there's a tiny, tiny part of me that's kind of insulted that you don't like mochi or mochi ice cream? It's like, I'm like, Jocko, you ever have that feeling where it's like...
One time, okay, so I'm a picky eater, right?
I understand.
I'm a picky eater. I don't like a bunch of different foods. I was out with my wife one time. She wasn't my wife. She was just a girl that I had met, but I was kind of into her like a lot, right?
Oh, yeah.
But
Wait,
anyways,
you're talking about your current wife?
My current wife,
then.
yes,
Got
my
it.
current wife back then.
Gotcha.
But we were going out, and she wanted me to try something I knew I didn't like. I think it was yogurt, but not yogurt. I'm an American.
Yes,
I am
sir.
an American that grew up in the 80s. So yogurt to me was a freaking Dannon yogurt, filled with sugar and blueberries, like sauce at the bottom or whatever. Like those things. Those things are good because they're filled with sugar. So, but this was we were overseas, and I had already made the mistake of thinking that yogurt overseas equated to a Dannon sugar-filled yogurt that I ate when I was 12 years old, and ate 9 of them because they tasted good.
Yep.
But I realized that when other people ate yogurt, it was just this weird tasting whatever with weird cucumbers in it or something. So anyways, my wife, who wasn't my wife yet, she's, oh, try this. She's from England, so she's all nice or whatever. Oh, try this. And I go, oh, no, it's okay. I don't really like that. She goes, no, just try it. She had the same attitude that you're implying right now. Like, she was kind of mad.
Yeah, bro.
As if, as if you were saying, oh, you don't like air. Hey, what do you mean you don't like air? Of course you like air. Yeah. She's like, oh, no, just try it. It's yogurt. It's good. I go, no, I don't really like it. So, just try it. Mm-hmm. And she started escalating.
Kind of imposed it.
So I go, okay. I take a little spoonful. It's freaking disgusting. I knew it was. I mean, it was, so mochi whatever ice cream isn't that bad.
Yeah.
I can stomach it, but I'm not going to make an effort to eat it. Now, milk, I will make effort to eat. Yeah. Milk is, you get that, hey, I will do what it takes to get some milk up in here.
Yep. I last night had a milkshake double with a ham. It wasn't ham, it was turkey sandwich. Mm-hmm. Boom. Late
that's
night.
A full.
What up?
That's a pleasurable scenario.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And mine was the basic milkshake, by the way.
What's basic?
Just the milk. It was lactose-free milk.
Okay.
Because I had it for some other stuff I was making. And just regular milk. That's it. No banana, no nothing.
But you got that little Sammy on, and then you put down that milk. That's a quality scenario right there.
Yes,
you're good to go.
Oh, yeah, and it was like, no matter if I was into the extra protein at the time, and I was. But even if I wasn't, it's like kind of like a cool little, like a dessert. You know what I'm saying? Come on, bro.
JockoFuel.com. Get the drinks at Wawa. You can get all of it at Vitamin Shop. Appreciate it. Go to OriginUSA.com. We got some cool stuff for sale there. Boots, jeans, T-shirts. Most important, jiu-jitsu gis. Yep. I trained some jiu-jitsu up at Paragon, San Luis Obispo. Paragon Slow. It's so cool, man. You go anywhere right now, and there's jiu-jitsu, and the people are awesome. Everyone's cool. It's just freaking legit. Great class, bunch of awesome people there. So, and you get, what's interesting, bro? A lot of Origin gis out there. A lot of Origin gis out there. People want to buy Origin gis because they know that they're made in America.
Bro, I saw I don't know if what do you call it, a mini docu. It was video about like American manufacturing, or it was about manufacturing, and it was talking about like kind of the history of it or whatever, and the reasons that whether it be China or all these, but like it's kind of like they kind of have to do the manufacturing for all these different reasons, and it depends on the product and all this stuff, right? But they kind of have to do it. Otherwise, it's kind of like that was kind of the storyline. Yeah. But then there were a few exceptions in there that they didn't go specific on, but they were just like China's doing this because of this, and to do it anywhere else, it's like it's just unrealistic, kind of a thing. But then all the exceptions, when I kind of like deduced all the exceptions, I was like, oh, wait, that's why Origin can do all this stuff. They do have to make certain sacrifices. But with the sacrifices comes like more, basically the detriments that places like China or whatever they call it, what do they call it? Affordable labor.
Affordable labor.
Know, right?
It's freaking slave labor, bro.
Yeah. It's kind of like that, for example. But here you get basically each laborer or whatever, they have like actual quality of life that reflects on the end product kind of a thing. So anyway, you can kind of go down the line and be like, oh, I see. But here's the thing. At the end of my point is like what they do is like, dang, that's that's a very unique thing that they're doing.
Who's they?
Origin
USA.
Yes,
us.
Sir.
Us. This is a very unique thing that we are doing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, go to OriginUSA.com for that. We also have a store. It's called Echo Store.
Yeah, that's the forwarding URL. JockoStore.com. That's where you can write. That's where you can get your shirts and your merch. It's good stuff on there too, by the way. It's not just like cheap, what do you call low cost to the lowest common denominator, lowest bidder. What is that expression? It's not either. Whatever the expression is, it's not that. It's quality. Good stuff. If you want to represent hard and look good and feel good, by the way, yes, you can get all kinds of good stuff on there. JockoStore.com.
Subscribe to the podcast. And also check out JockoUnderground.com. it's very interesting what's happening right now in the world.
Yep.
And look, yeah, there's a war going on right now, an insane war, right? A war that the likes of which we have not seen in a long time in Ukraine. So that's happening. But meanwhile, you got just crazy things happening all around the world. You got censorship happening. You got people shutting down websites, shutting down people from speaking. You've got control media influenced by the government, influenced by big tech, all in one. It's crazy stuff happening right now. JockoUnderground.com if you want to help out where we have a little bastion of our own, where if we need to retreat to rebuild, we'll be in there. JockoUnderground.com if you want to support that. You can check that out. We have a YouTube channel. We have the Origin USA has a YouTube channel. So check both those out. What else we got?
Psychological Warfare.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a little album. The Wednesday you can download this album if you have moments of weakness. It's basically Jocko telling you how to get past those moments of weakness. Very helpful on those moments. Trust me. Even if you don't have a lot of them, you can just have one.
Occasional
Boom.
one.
Reduce it to 0.
Maybe you're addicted to mochi. FlipsideCanvas.com. Dakota Meyer, my brother, has got cool stuff to hang on your wall. I've written a bunch of books. Check them out if you want to. Especially check out the Warrior Kid books. That's where you can have a huge impact. You can have a huge impact on a kid's life just by getting that kid those books. So check that out. EchelonFront.com. It's our leadership consultancy. We have an event called The Muster. We have one in Dallas. It's sold out. So sorry about that. But we have other ones. You can check that out. We have online training at Extreme Ownership Academy, extremeownership.com. A bunch of information on there about being a leader and about being a human being. It'll help you with everything in your life. So check that out. If you want to help out service members, active and retired, you want to help with their families, Gold Star families, check out Mark Lee's mom, Mama Lee. She's got an incredible charity organization. Go to americasmightywarriors.org if you want to help out. Also check out Heroes and Horses, Micah Fink. He's got a bunch of awesome stuff going on. Once again, to contact Joe Piersante, his website is joep.us. And he's also got a LinkedIn account, which is Joe Piersante. And he's got a Facebook as well, which is Joe Piersante IBBF.
IBBF Pro.
Right. Yep. International Bodybuilding Federation Pro. Mm-hmm. So check that out. As far as Echo and I go, we're both on Twitter. We're both on the gram. We're both on Facebook. Echo's at Echo Charles. I'm at Jocko Willink. But, just look out because you step in there, you're going to be fighting the algorithm. That's what's happening. You're going to be fighting the algorithm, so be careful when you step in there. Thanks once again to Joe Piersante for coming on, for just setting an incredible example of tenacity and of perseverance. And, just him putting the perspective of becoming blind, becoming wounded, becoming blind, and he says, no use crying over spilled milk. To put those two in the same sentence and actually behave that way, truly inspiring person. So thank you, Joe, for coming on, and thanks to all the military personnel out there around the world that stand up and fight for freedom and liberty. And I know there's some of you out there right now that are truly standing up and fighting for freedom and liberty. So thank you for holding the line. And thanks to our police and law enforcement, and tonight especially, thanks to the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, men like Joe Piersante that are out there trying to protect us all from the evil of drugs and the violent crime that it produces. And also thanks to firefighters, paramedics, Border Patrol, EMTs, dispatchers, correctional officers, Secret Service, all the first responders. Thank you for your service here on the home front. And everyone else out there, well, what excuses do you possibly have? right? If someone like Joe can go through what he's gone through, can suffer what he's suffered, can still go out there every day and get after it. And he said something. He said, you can't make a case sitting behind a desk. And that's some pretty good advice, not just for law enforcement, but for life. What you have to do is go out there every single day and get after it. Until next time, this is Echo and Jocko. Out.